All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. I am Evan McDermott. For this episode, I was joined by my brother Anthony Schneider in studio, and we had the privilege to interview Letao Wang. Now, Letao is a certified counselor, spiritually focused, and really he specializes in tarot, astrology, numerology. He's so well versed in the Greek myths, gods and goddesses. Truly a man that has connected so many dots in his own practice and really offers such unique insights. And this was a fun conversation, man. We were shooting the shit for a good 2 hours, and really digging deep on just so much with self-development, understanding tarot, life mapping through spirituality, through divinatory practices, looking at the impacts on culture and, barriers we might have within ourselves to that might prevent us from exploring inward. A lot of good stories, good conversation, a good time on this podcast. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did, being able to take part in it. And special thank you to Letao for coming on. Be sure to head on his website, thehealingkingdom.com. He's done some great interviews with Paul Check. Shout out to Paul. Thank you very much for always providing wonderful guests and connections on your own show. It's amazing. So check out his podcast as well. And special thank you to our official sponsor, Tranquil Desires, here in Chamberlain, South Dakota. Really the number one spot to go to for anything in terms of healing, metaphysical, apothecary, whatever it is that you guys need, or just you want to come in, shoot the shit with Patty, sit down, have a nice cup of organic coffee, cold brew, whatever it may be. Uh, that's the spot. Honestly, even if it's a day's drive, it's worth checking out Tranquil Desires and say, hey, Evan at the Fifth Dimension sent you in. That's what it's all about. So, special thank you to Tranquil Desires. If you're a fan of the show, you can subscribe, whatever platform you are on, YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leaving a review, all of that, commenting really does help the show, helps the algorithms that are in place to get other people to listen. So, I appreciate all of you guys doing that. You can check out my poetry book, To Marshal Love Against Tyranny. There's a copy in my corner behind me over here. You guys can surely see that's out on Amazon. I do have a new poetry book coming out in the next month or two. It'll be titled Remember Who You Are. And I'm excited to really be in the finishing stages of it. It's cool how it came together, man. I wasn't sure we were gonna get another poetry book this year. My goal of one a year was a little in jeopardy, but the magic fairies of poetry within me certainly did their work. We had a lot to say over the last couple months and write, so a lot of good stuff there, and I'm excited to get that out to you. Check out my Substack, mcdermott.substack.com. You subscribe there for free. You'll always be notified any new podcasts that come out, any writing, explorative writing, whether it's poetry, essays and reflections on whatever it might be on the current state of the world. There's some good deep dive information already on there as well. If you want to start connecting some dots spiritually, culturally, whatever it might be sure to check it out. mcdermott.substack.com. If you want to donate to the show, there's a link to do so in the episode show notes below. We really do thrive on donations and the people who have donated in the past. Thank you. Appreciate it. Do this work. There ain't nobody paying us to do this. We do this out of passion, love, and an eagerness to just explore. So it's always heartfelt and appreciative. And really, without further ado, let's jump into the podcast. So, like I said, this is profound. There's a lot of insight in here, a lot to learn and unpack. So sit with it. I would encourage you guys, if you are looking for divinatory practices and looking to deepen your own spirituality, something like tarot or astrology, or even just engage in stories. Look for the heroes, look to the gods before us and the storytellers of the past for wisdom, for insight, because there's a lot to learn when we start to unpack the myths that surround our culture and the myths that make us who we are. So, allow this to be a podcast for your own inward exploration, and I'm sure it will serve you well. So let's jump into the podcast with Letao Wang. What the fuck are you doing? Get down. Hey, come on. Sorry about that. That's brutal. I might need to edit that out. Um, or not. I don't know. But let's jump into the podcast with Letao Wang, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Exciting.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. I'm Evan McDermott, joined by Anthony Schneider,
Hey guys, what's
one and
up?
only. And we're joined by a very special guest today, Letao Wang, tarot reader. Truly, I could give a long description here, but I don't think it would fully encompass all of that you do and the energy that you bring, honestly, because you're so multifaceted and talented in the different backgrounds and perspectives that you have. Author of the Oracle of the Mythic Heroes deck, which I have the pleasure of having to sit with, and I'm glad the timing of the podcast worked out as it did after all, and that I was able to get it in time. And so that was beautiful. But Latau, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the podcast, man. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, could you start just give a little bit about your background, your journey? Because I mean, I
Mm,
would love to learn. I learned a little bit from
mm,
listening,
mm,
to Paul Check and a few of the conversations you've had. But for ourselves and the listeners, could you talk a little about
mm.
your own journey and in particular
Right.
this deck? Because I am so interested.
Mm,
Him and I both do tarot. Like we're doing it
mm,
every day. Like we're always reading
mm.
cards. I've written
Huh.
up. I'm writing up my own tarot deck, and he's contributing into it too. And
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
tarot and combining it with like the hero's journey and folklore, and
Uh-huh.
really, so we're
Yeah.
we're deeply exploring these concepts ourselves. And I think your
Mm,
understanding is so
mm.
profound because you're connecting all of these things in so many different angles that I haven't personally even seen. So, you know, I would love to
Yeah.
hear about how that came to be and
Right.
what you're bringing because
Right.
it's truly remarkable.
Thank you. Thank you so much for, supporting my deck and also my work, right?
Yeah.
Really glad to be here and meet you guys, right? Um, so I'm a spiritual counselor and I've been practicing spiritual counseling and reading sessions for about 10 years. Yeah, I
Oh,
started back in the late 2014. So yeah, it's about 10 years. Mainly, I see clients in Hong Kong, we do face-to-face sessions, but these days more and more clients are coming overseas or they do, online sessions with me. I started actually as just a tarot reader,
Mhm.
because in my early days training as a reader was very much about predictions, the predictive technology, the techniques, right?
yep.
That I learned from my first spiritual teacher. About 3 to 4 years after reading professionally for clients, I realized that what I really was interested in was therapy. And
Mm.
so I became less interested in telling people what will happen, and I became more, yeah, fascinated by psychology and the art of healing, basically.
Yep.
Mm.
And so
Beautiful.
and so when a client comes to me, what I really wanted to do was to work with them and understand their history and guide them through the trauma or the wound that they are experiencing, rather than just telling them this is going to happen. So either it's good or bad. And that realization, brought me back to university actually. So I, about back in 2017 or 18, I think, yeah, and I decided to pursue my second master program in counseling. Because when I do counseling, I wanted to do it professionally. I don't
Mm.
want to do counseling, right? Oh, I'm
Right.
I'm I'm doing therapy for you, but you have no qualification, you have never studied it systematically, right? Because sometimes people ask, right? So, oh, you
Yep.
say you're a therapist, what's your qualification? And I really wanted to know it from the scientific perspective, from the research perspective. So I went back to university and spent a year
Mhm.
doing the program. And so now mainly what I do is I will use tarot and oracle cards and also astrology to do the so-called diagnosis, okay, to
Yep.
look at what the problems are. And then, basically half of the session is more about counseling. So it's
Mm.
about, but okay, now we're seeing what you're experiencing and the blockage is there, and how would you like to move forward with this, or and what kind of talk therapy do you need? So that's what I'm doing, is to combine the esoteric arts, which we all love, right? Tarot, astrology, numerology, all these kind of things together with modern day counseling. Yeah.
Mm. I
That's
love that.
amazing.
I love that. Well, and I think that's such a gap that
Uh,
I feel like we're moving towards bridging
mm,
as a whole. It feels
yeah.
kind of collectively there is a lot more people interested in,
Mm,
divination practices like tarot and astrology, and it's
yep.
beautiful to witness.
Mm.
And I think what we're kind of yearning for as a culture is that sort of esoteric perspective because I
Yeah.
think
In
we're
connection.
yeah,
Yeah,
connection.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. I actually have when I was doing my counseling program, I had a classmate. So I asked her, I said, "So why are you studying counseling?" And she said, "Oh, I was a music teacher. I was teaching piano for
Yeah.
years, but I realized I like counseling. I like, psychology and all that kind of stuff. So now what she's doing is she's doing music therapy.
That's
So she's
beautiful.
Mm.
also
Yeah.
combining, right, two different things together, and she's using music and to help clients to go through their healing. And I think this is something unique about her, right? So we're all, having the common interest in counseling, but you have your own strengths. Whether maybe you are a sports coach, right? You are a musician, right? Or whatever field that you used to work in, you can always combine different talents together, and
There's
that make
multiple
you.
abilities to these
Correct.
things. Yep.
Yeah, and that makes you unique, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
something different, and people feel that connection through one thing, but when you present them with three things that they can connect to every single one, they're like, this is
Uh,
very powerful. This hits home more
yeah,
than just one thing.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what makes true authenticity, though, and why I resonate deeply with everything that you're doing, because you do
Mm,
have such a unique perspective on with your own background and in the approach, especially in a counseling setting. Because I very much gravitate towards counseling and the healing arts. I mean, I
mm,
come from an
mm,
education background in a sense. I have a
yeah,
teaching
yeah,
degree.
yeah.
I'm very interested in physical fitness. I'm getting my personal
Mm,
trainer certificate right now. Just got to take the
awesome,
test on
awesome.
that. But I was
Yeah,
even
yeah.
talking yesterday with somebody. I said, and it wasn't to you. I was talking to somebody I was talking to. I said I would love to go back and get a counseling degree.
Yep.
Like I want to go and study
Nah.
part of
Mm,
counseling, and but like from
yeah, yeah,
a holistic perspective, so certainly.
yeah, yeah,
But take
yeah.
on the because I just bought Carl Jung's Red Book. Like I'm
Mm,
doing all the deep dive.
Yeah.
You
Things
know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
doing the deep dive.
100%.
connection. Yeah. And see,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
as well with how like I just turned 39. I have
Mm,
three boys I raised
okay.
here in South Dakota.
Uh-huh.
So even being a father like that with three boys coming from my background, which is very long, I won't get into it quite at this moment, but having to help my children through life shows me, the guidance of what my responsibilities are. But then when I'm able
Mm,
to connect with tarot or, any divination or any tool or just emotion,
yeah.
energy connection, and they feel
Mm,
that, they grow so much more. And it's like, obviously, if it's
yeah.
working for my children and me, like everybody can resonate with this.
Yeah. So speaking of that, right, children,
Yep.
I remember Paul,
Mhm.
in the podcast, he said, he would ask, his wife Angie to read the stories from Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, to
Mm.
his own kids, right? And
Yeah.
this is something that I was really glad to hear because, this deck that I created, in each chapter, you can see there's the myth
Yep.
chapter, which is purely about the
Which
storytelling.
is awesome in itself. Thank you very much for tying that in together with this. Just trying to be not a fanboy to you, but it's beautiful. I have a lot of amazing decks throughout history, and yours is up there. And I just
Thank
and I
you.
just looked at it last night. So
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Yeah. So the story part, right? I also put a lot of effort into doing my own rendition of those stories. But I was so glad to hear that Paul told me that his children are enjoying it. So this basically is telling me that this deck is not just for adults, but children can also
Mhm.
enjoy them. But of course, right, the teaching part, whether they can understand that or not, that's a different issue. But the stories, I think it's always important when we were young, we were exposed to those stories, right?
Mm.
Yep.
And then when we grow up, when we study spirituality and or mythology again, and that they can ring a bell, and it's easier for us to understand. Yeah.
Yep.
Letao, did you feel like when you were growing up? Because
Uh,
when I speak to myself,
yeah.
I don't feel like I had much of a deep connection to my sort
Mm,
of roots and my ancestors in the sense where,
mm,
we weren't telling the stories of my ancestors. I mean, the most that I had was
mm.
a little genealogy book, and we traced back to the town in Ireland that my great
Yeah.
grandparents immigrated, which is still cool.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
My brother's going to visit there in like December. I'm like, I'm jealous,
Cool. Yeah.
but I don't know. I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had that like deeply rooted connection to the stories,
Mm,
myths, and to
mm,
sort of what actually shaped who we are, culture.
mm.
Do
Um,
you feel like you
mm.
had that in your upbringing, and how have you been able to sort of incorporate that?
No, actually,
No?
yeah, I didn't. Yeah. So when I was a kid, first of all, I didn't have a lot of opportunities to read, mythology or stories. And first of all, I grew up in a very traditional family, and my parents were very, very, um,
Guided.
how do I describe them? They were very much, authoritarians, right? And I don't know if you have a lot of Chinese friends, and and if you know their parents, right? I mean, so Anthony, I'm around the same age with you, right? I'm
Okay.
40 this year.
Nice.
So my parents were
Congratulations.
born. Oh, same to you. So my parents were born in the 1950s.
Yep.
And Chinese people born in that generation, they had they grew up in a very different environment, right? So, they experienced a cultural revolution, that happened back in the
Very
1960s and
familiar with the
70s.
Chinese history from
Right.
3,000 years ago till now. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that, but sorry, I get it.
Awesome. No, I think that, yeah, that's great, right? So you see, like, what my parents experienced around that time.
Yep.
And then they would have their expectations about what their offspring should be. And this is
Yep.
a very cultural thing. And so when I was young, my parents did not encourage me to read a lot of stories. It was very much about the stereotypical, you got to do well in school, what's your math exam,
Mhm.
Yep.
what did you get, right? Are you going to get into a good university?
That was the
And
most
things
important
like
thing.
that.
Yep. Yep.
To them. Yeah,
Yep.
to them, right?
Of
And of
course,
course,
yes.
when you grow up in that environment, you kind of like accustomed to it. So you think, okay, so that's what life is about. It's about you do the right thing and you do what the society is expecting you
I was just
to
gonna say
be.
the expectation of
Yeah,
everything. It's very
yeah,
powerful,
yeah.
but very close-minded,
Correct. Yeah. But in a way, I don't really blame them, right? Because that's how they grew up. Probably
Yeah.
that's
They didn't
how
know
they
any better.
experienced. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And so the first time I realized that, oh, there's a thing called astrology, and this is fascinating, was very much about when I was already 23, 24.
okay.
And that time I lived in Sydney, Australia. I was doing
Nice.
my first master program. And yeah, just one casual afternoon, I was, ambling down the street with a friend, and we saw a very weird shop in a neighborhood in Sydney called Erskineville. And I just remember I saw a big skull,
Oh, yeah.
outside the
You're
shop
like, that's
as a decor.
interesting.
Yeah, I was like, what
Yep.
is this? Because
Yep.
initially I thought it was like a magician, like, people who like to do magics, or I thought
Yep.
they were selling that kind of stuff. So we walked in, there was a guy sitting in the shop, and he said, oh, do you want a reading? I didn't even know what a reading was. I was 23, I think, at
Yep.
that time. Yeah. And I was a broke student. I didn't have money. So I said, I have $20, if you
I
can do
can't really
something
pay
with
you
it.
all, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I only had $20, and that's my, monthly
I need to
allowance.
live off of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Having
So
sleep for dinner that night.
Yeah.
pretty much, when you're a student, right?
Yep.
And I was also not working, part-time
Mhm.
much. But anyway, so I had my first reading with this guy, and that was a miracle. And that's when I suddenly realized that there was a door opened for me, and there was this whole world of myth and astrology that I was so fascinated by that I never had that sensation in my life. And eventually, one thing leads to another. So that guy became my first astrology teacher.
Mm.
And so when I lived in Sydney, I was, studying with him for a while. But of course, at that time, it was just a hobby for me, right? Even though I got so much joy when I spent time with him, studying and listening, to the stories. And of course, he was an astrologer, but he was more like a mythologist. So coming back to Evan, your question about, how do you, weave these things together, right? Oops.
Yep.
Well, it's very much about my early days training in astrology was about mythology. So when he taught me, the planets, the sun, the moon, the Mercury, Venus, Mars, it was very much about the stories from Iliad and Odyssey. And then he will ask me a question. He will say, so now you know the story. You tell me what you think Venus means in astrology.
Mm.
It's a little bit like that. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so Yeah, so my early days training was really about the stories, and I've always wanted to create something to, bring these things together. Because most astrology, because Anthony and Evan, I'm sure you own a lot of tarot cards or
Most definitely.
oracle decks, right?
Yep.
And most astrology themed cards are very much just astrology.
Yep.
Yes.
And so, right, and if you look for, I actually have a deck which I like actually. I think it's called Star Code Oracle. Yeah, I think it's published by Hay House or something. It's a beautiful deck. But they only talk about astrology from a very traditional perspective, and I just wanted to create a channel for people to bring the story and the myth into astrology so that it's easier to understand, right? And it also expands. Because once you have stories and when you read the cards, it gives you more intuition. One of the examples I can give to you guys is I remember there was a time a client coming to me and she was asking about a collaboration, like a business collaboration deal, right? And she said, I'm gonna collaborate with another two people on we want to open a company. Do you think this is a good teamwork, right? Can we work together? And so she put three cards, and I remember two of them. One of them was Neptune, and the other one was a Juno or Hera, right, the goddess of the sky. So if you just look at these two cards individually from the astrological perspective, it's good. Because Neptune is about learning how to go with the flow, right? Keep dreaming, right? Keep, holding your idealism. And the Juno is the goddess of the sky, and that's about marriage and relationship and commitment. So at first glance, you might think, okay, this works great,
looks
right?
good, yeah.
Congratulations. But if you know the myth, you will know right away this might not be very long lasting, because in the story, about Artemis and Apollo, because their mother was running away from Hera, or Juno, because Juno was jealous of her. And it was Neptune or Poseidon who created an ocean bubble behind Hera's back. And she sent this woman to a beautiful island called Delos. So right away, when I saw Neptune and Juno, these two cards together, it's about secrecy. It's about someone doing something behind your back. And so I told her, I said, on the surface, they might be telling you that they really want to be a part of it, of the deal, but they have their own agenda. And I'm not sure how committed they are actually, right? And so my client was like, but they did say they want to work together and blah, blah, blah. And then, I was reading. And then about only a month later, that client called me again. She said, no, they're putting out. They said they don't want to do it anymore.
Wow.
And so sometimes it's about when you know the story, you know the relationships between the gods and goddesses and the stars, and that gives you a lot of intuition about how to answer the client's question. And this is what I'm really fascinated by when it comes to mythology and reading.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, because when I was looking at the first thing I did when I picked up your deck was, all right, I know he connected it with the astrological signs, and in particular the birth dates, right? Mine was the I wrote it down. I had never heard of this figure. Ianus foundation.
Agnes.
Agnes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm glad I knew you
yeah.
would know how to pronounce it. I didn't want to make a fool of myself, but I knew you would, so I was going to bring it up. But
no worries. Yeah, it's not easy to pronounce. Yeah, it's not a common name. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was reading the story of it, and it was so fascinating to hear his journey, because I've been all over the place. I've lived in, I think, seven different places now. Like I've been all over this, all over.
Yeah.
I've been very nomadic in my own journey, and and I'm at a point now where I'm building foundation. But I even looked at some of his relationships, for example, and it was almost the deceptive. I'm blanking on the other god, the queen. Dido. And I read what happened with that, and I'm like, wow, I have been I have done that. I've created some dinos. I'm like, wow.
You're a heartbroker.
Yeah, no. But I've been on the other end of it too, so the karma comes back. But it was so fascinating to see the light and the shadow so intertwined within the myth, and be able to really look at and self-reflect on that, and kind of see how these myths, like they're not that if you're taking them seriously, you're going to learn about your shadow. You're going to learn about the dark side. And I think like you're telling the story there, we're like, oh, but the word said this. He's not going to pull out. He said he was interested, right? And sure enough, they end up pulling out. They end up pulling out the business deal. Like, I think a lot of times we don't want to acknowledge that shadow aspect and
Oh,
the
absolutely.
dark
Yeah,
side
yeah.
of the myths in a sense. But I mean, that's really how we, I think, find more wholeness and we find a
More balance with it.
more balance. It's the yin and yang of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and we did a reading earlier today where we pulled those two cards together, and I'm like, oh my gosh!
After the entire reading, what we were going to learn and gather from the podcast was I-ness, the foundation, and then we pulled the Dido card after of what the next tool would be, and it was her. And I was kind of like, wow. I looked at it and not a negative perception, but I was just like, I just read about her though, and I know, we just pulled, what? How does this work, Evan? Like, and that's what's so beautiful about connecting with any divination is that when there's no explanation. That's just what it is. It's very slap in the face type of like, wow.
Oh, I can't deny that.
Sometimes the cards will just, give us a message that, we need, whether we want to hear it or not, right? Yeah. And I'm also doing daily cards pull, for myself, right? Because every day in the morning, I pull a card and ask the cards, right? What do I need to know about my day? And sometimes you get like
awesome.
you get a warning message. Like, for example, in this deck, right? I mean, to be honest, none of these cards are scary, right? But there's one card that people usually say, oh, I don't like it. It's the card of Medea. It says revenge. And so she's from the story Jason and the Argonauts. And so the story itself is actually quite grueling because she killed her own children because her husband cheated on her. And so as a revenge, she said, you cheated on me, right? You're not going to be with me. I'll kill our children in front of you. Right? So that was a very crazy story from me because, Greek mythology is very crazy, right? I mean, brother marry sister, whatever that is, right? But, that was like thousands of years ago. But sometimes I see this card as this part of us, almost like feeling we have to. It's almost like this inner desire for us to not just to revenge, but it's almost like I have to prove myself to someone so that I can find my value and my self-worth. Like I have a client the other day and she pulled this card and she is in a new job. And she has always been, very hardworking, she's an achiever, but this job is just not for her. And she's not really, she just can't get into it, And so when she was kind of like told off by her boss only after, 2 months in this new job, and she felt very, well, part of her was about frustration. The part of her was like, I know I'm smart. I know I can do a great job, right? I just have to. And she was really trying to prove to everyone else that she was a capable, professional. And then she pulled out this Medea card that says revenge. And I said to her, I said, well, it doesn't mean that you want to, kind of like, want to kill your boss or anything, but it just means that you feel like it's unfair to you. You feel like somehow I have to prove it, right? I have to get it out there. And so then I feel more balanced and I feel happier. So sometimes it's about understanding and becoming more self-aware of what we're subconsciously feeling. And then it will feel, so it's good for our mental health, or it's good for our balance, because sometimes we're just not aware of how we feel because we're so filled with feelings
with everything else.
Well, do you find so in terms of, because I've noticed a profound difference of how, maybe not a profound difference, but I notice a shift in how I read cards for myself versus how I read cards for another. I feel like there is I remember the first time I ever gave a tarot reading to somebody. I was kind of new to it, but I was, I was really getting in the flow of it. And it was my roommate at the time. And, she was a very, very sweet girl, but, she kind of struggled with some, depression and had a lot going on in her life. And I pulled all these cards and I started talking and reading, and she just broke down. And I'm like, oh my,
what did I do?
No, exactly. And the thing was, I was like, it made me realize that, like, okay, for going the full distance with these and being honest when I'm pulling cards, it gives people the truth that they need. But I feel like sometimes sometimes my own blind spots in my own lack of self-awareness can prevent me from seeing the full picture for
100%.
myself
Yeah.
with the
Oh
cards.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Do
That happens all the time.
you
Yeah. I
have
usually
yeah.
Yeah. So if I have a very if I have a very serious question that I know I will be very emotional about, I will
Mhm.
not read for myself. Yeah. I usually I will go to my spiritual teacher and I'll ask my teacher to read for me because I know I won't be able to read it very objectively. Because you
Mhm.
already know what you truly desire. You already know what you want to see, right? And the very typical thing we do is you shuffle the cards, you pull a card, and there's, I don't know, Nine of Swords. They'd be like, okay, no, 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 let me
I didn't want to
reshuffle.
see
You
that
know?
one.
Yeah. And you pull another one, oh, Ten of Swords. Okay, reshuffle, reshuffle. Let me ask again. You know what I mean? So no, and that's also what my clients sometimes, the reason why they come to me is, some of my clients they read cards themselves as well, but they will say, Letao, I can't do this on my own. I need you to help me. So yeah, I think it's actually very important for us to go to someone professional and let them read for us. And of course, you do need to have a trustworthy relationship with them, right?
Yep.
Right.
But I agree with you, Evan. I can't. Yeah, it's simple things, like easy things. I'm fine, but not something that I'm very emotionally invested in.
Right. There's only a certain level of, I think, and I think this goes to any divinatory practice. I mean, I really love the idea of self-healing and I love the
Yeah.
idea of self-empowerment, but I think there's
Mm,
there's levels to it that you can't always access with your own biases and traumas and triggers because
yeah.
you need that objective
Mm,
truth from somebody else. And and
yeah. Yeah.
uh, so I totally understand. That's exactly what I was thinking. I guess not able to articulate prior because I'm not able to fully I can read my own tarot, but if it's about
Very difficult
if
to
it's
do.
about the deep things, it's like
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
but no, I'll write a poem instead. I don't know, you
It's
know.
hard to do. You're like Letao was saying, when you have this kind of preconceived notion before your subconscious and your being is already thinking before you're even thinking about doing a reading for yourself.
Mhm.
So it's there
Uh-huh.
already. We know that it's already out there,
Yeah.
like you said, with the 9 and the 10s coming up. That's what you're supposed to see.
Yeah.
And when you're
Yeah.
when you're thinking in your mind, like, I didn't want that.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's why it's already diluted in a sense, is like what you're saying with your own reading.
Yeah.
Because for
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
personally, there are times where I will not read for myself.
Yeah.
I
Mm,
like yours.
mm,
I
mm.
just won't do it because I
Yeah.
understand that it might bring me in a lower vibration, or it might give me a truth that
Yeah.
maybe I'm not ready for, because I obviously I
Yeah.
didn't read.
100%. Yeah.
But a
Yeah.
lot of times what I really resonate with, as far as reading on my own, is it helps me connect so much more to just source. I mean, not
Yeah.
even to
Yeah.
myself per se, because I 1,000,000% trust what I'm doing. So then
Mm,
Yeah.
it's very easy for me to just be the tool, because
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not necessarily just about how light and how powerful we are. It's just connect.
Mm,
Everybody,
yeah.
we can all
Yeah.
do this. We can all connect. We can all be tarot readers, have a divinatory
Yeah.
tool or aspect, because we're all beings of light. So it's just
Absolutely.
that's why
And
we're out here trying to help people see that.
yeah.
We are the
And
hermit.
sometimes, yeah, and sometimes, the things that we use, they don't have to be cards. In
No,
the ancient days, Chinese people used to read things from a turtle shell. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
beautiful.
Like, right?
Tea
You
leaves.
can get
Yeah.
get your intuition from anything, right? The messages, or sometimes you walk down the street, you see a sign, and you realize that, wow, like this just reminds me of something else, right? And I was literally talking about this morning. Okay, that means something. Or you see angel numbers, 111, 1212,
The synchronicity of it. Yep.
right? 333,
That's just
right? It's
showing you that not only are you intuitive, but you are connected. It's
mm, mm,
the reason why I like your deck so much, Letao. I have probably 4 decks that are similar in your aspect of putting different like runes together with
mm, mm,
elements,
mm,
but
mm,
also with
mm.
astrology, and then also the traditional tarot deck. But it has 4 different things into one aspect of all of the cards, and you're like, that's a lot. Like
Yeah,
sometimes, you're like, how do you do that in one card?
yeah,
One
yeah,
in
yeah,
one perception. How do you
yeah,
get so
yeah.
much? And that it's because it all comes back to the same point of, or
Good point.
you but
Right, yeah.
you as the creative artist, you're the one connecting them to be like, look, guys, Like
Connecting dots.
it's beautiful. It's
Thank
connecting
you.
dots, but say it.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense.
Oh yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
you know,
It's like spiritually connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Wow, look
the
at
dots
this one.
together.
Wow, look at, like, you guys see
You
this
know,
over here? What are you looking at? Watch now.
huh, huh, huh.
You presented it very beautifully. So,
Thank you.
but it's just powerful. So,
You know the original the transcript, right? The manuscript, sorry,
yep.
of the guidebook.
Okay.
It was actually much longer than
Hmm.
what you're seeing now. Actually, it was 20% longer because I actually wrote a lot, but the publisher just told me you gotta cut it down because the oracle cards, tarot cards, books cannot be that thick. Yeah, and I think you guys know, right? You
And
Yep.
you
the
own a lot
funny
of
thing
cards.
though is the thicker the better. I'm like, I want that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me
Yeah.
the info.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, everyone wants different things. Literally,
Yeah.
actually, I've seen someone. Of course, it just means that this deck is not for her. She left a comment on Amazon, and she said, "I don't like this deck because the
Mhm.
guidebook is too long, and I don't know why the author would put all the counseling cases there. Is wasting my time." Reading it. Some people, you
Yep.
can't please everyone, right? Some
Yeah.
people love it. Some people just like, I want something like just one piece of paper that's a
Well,
guidebook and that's it,
and
right?
So
Yeah.
that's I'm not gonna say that this is my own perception, obviously, but like it's kind of sad in my opinion that people feel that way because it's so
Yeah.
it's so deep anyways that even your book, your deck doesn't give what you know how to do and what you can connect to justice. Like there's so much only our words can even express what we are
Right.
doing or feeling or trying to help with. So it makes me feel kind of sad because it's like, but if you would just kind of connect with it more, it's like reading a good book.
Hmm.
Any book that
Yeah,
anyone
yeah.
resonates with, the imagination, the creation of what you have inside of you makes that book so much more that this is what it is. Storytelling is the most powerful ancient thing in the entire history of mankind.
Yeah,
If
Yeah.
you're a good storyteller, then you basically ruled back in the day.
Right. Yeah.
That's
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think to kind of speak on that, Letao, I think why we really resonate with it is because we love storytelling and we love myth and mythology, and we're very interested in that. So, but I can see,
history.
I mean, I got the little Rider-Waite deck sitting here too. I mean, I can see why somebody might want the Rider-Waite where it gives them, here's 10 things that, here's 10 adjectives.
Yeah,
that the card
yeah,
needs,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly, right? So, yeah, so because when I created this, I really wanted to be a storybook, and not just about one card, like what you said, 3 adjectives and finish, right? And
Yeah.
so during the process of creating this deck, we had a lot of negotiation with the editors and the publishers because they also have to look at this from the sales perspective,
Yeah, of
what
course.
people want, right? So, and the result is we compromise. So we cut down about 20% of the writing, but still you can see it's this thick.
No, it's it's a book.
I think it's the thickest book I have for a deck.
Book, yeah.
Actually, I do.
Yeah, I think
I remember
so.
I picked it up. Yeah, when I picked it up when it came in, I'm like, holy smokes, this is like, I could sit down and read it like it's a book. And I intend to do that because I mean I could pull every card and learn the stories as I go, I suppose. But I actually plan to sit down and read it like a book because that's what it feels like. It's such a wealth of knowledge. But I think it kind of speaks to what we were talking about more towards the beginning about there being the lack of stories and the lack of myth and I guess a lack of connection to that aspect of ourselves. How often I mean, we do this often because we're out in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. So, I mean, we're out in nature all the time. So we sit around the campfire and we tell stories and we have, fun. And we're looking at the stars and doing, that's kind of a very, you call it an ancient thing to do. That's what we've been doing since the dawn of time, right? But I don't think, in city environments and just the emphasis of our culture, it doesn't emphasize that as something that is a priority.
100%. Yeah. Well, so you guys where are you guys located in the States?
So we are in the United States. We are basically in the Great Plains in the middle of the United States.
Yes.
It's called South Dakota, but there's a
South Dakota,
main body of water right in our town that we live on. It's called the Missouri River.
Oh, yeah.
So we're and then the town, like for example, I'm Native American. I'm a Lakota Sioux. So I don't know if you know much history about Native Americans in America and whatnot,
Mm,
but
mm,
so we had the Sioux natives were very large, very proud. They had probably the biggest tribe in America, you know, as far as the area
yeah, yeah,
and whatnot.
yeah,
So it's very powerful. The energy, the sacredness, spirituality is very
mm,
powerful in this
mm,
area. It just we have the
yeah.
Black Hills. We call it the heart of America, the world actually. But when you look over it, Letao, it looks like the shape of a human heart. That it has the
Ah,
valves, the
interesting.
rivers that go
Okay.
through. It's wild. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, that's
yeah,
not a
yeah.
trick, you know. It's so well, anyway, so the area is very
Yeah,
energized and
yeah,
very
yeah,
open. So
Yeah.
it's easy
yeah,
for us
yeah,
to like connect out here because there's not a lot of distraction and light
yeah,
pollution and
yeah.
perspectives that are so heavy that they weigh, you know, in fields or, you know, like it's easy to be ourselves here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's such a therapeutic thing, right? To live in an environment where you feel it's easy for you to connect with the spirits and your ancestries and things like that. Well, I live in Hong Kong. I mean, we don't have a lot of that actually. I mean, Hong Kong has beautiful nature, yeah, but
Oh,
Hong
beautiful
Kong is
city.
not. Yeah, are you been?
No, but
Oh,
so
oh,
I'm very aware of my surroundings in the world and countries
oh,
and
oh,
cities, and I've traveled a lot. I was in the military and the Navy, but
oh,
like
okay.
the Hong Kong, I guess more so than Shanghai and stuff, but Hong Kong is I've always wanted to go there, like Rome. Like I'm gonna go to Hong Kong. We're going to Hong Kong sometime. We
Yes.
are just like we're going to Rome and different
Yeah,
places, but
yeah,
it's one of the
yeah,
like
yeah,
my top
yeah.
five most beautiful places I'm gonna go see. So
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Hong
I,
Kong is a beautiful place, right? I mean, we have, of course, the hustle and bustle, right? This is the financial hub of Asia, but
Yep.
also we do have beautiful nature. I mean, Hong Kong is surrounded by mountains, actually, and that's what geographically that's what separates Hong Kong from China.
from China. Yep.
So if you look towards the north, you see all the mountains, right? And then beyond that, those mountains is China. And so, hiking, we'll have a lot of waterfalls. If you go into the mountains,
Do
right?
you
So it's
go
actually
hiking a
quite
lot?
beautiful. During COVID, yes.
Yeah.
During
Good
COVID
choice.
time.
Yep.
Yeah, because we had very, very strict lockdown. We
Mm.
were not able to fly out at all. And Hong Kong is just a one city. If you're trapped in the city, you can't go out. It's a really horrible experience.
Yes.
And so
That's
what do we
scary,
do?
very scary.
Yeah, we just do
That's why
hike.
Evan came out to South Dakota,
Yeah.
Letao.
Oh,
I lived in
we,
Boston for a long time. I'm from the East Coast,
uh-huh,
so I'm not
uh-huh.
originally from here, but so I get living. It very much feels like kind of like a concrete jungle in a way, almost like a little bit of
100%.
a
Yeah.
artificial zoo environment. This is kind of how I
Yeah, yeah,
would describe
yeah,
cities for the most, at
yeah.
least being
Very,
trapped in them.
yeah, during
It's,
that
yeah,
time,
it's
that could
very
not be a
bad. Yeah.
pleasant experience. So
Yeah. But in South Dakota, there was no strict
we
lockdown and things
we
like that.
had we were the most conservative state in
Yeah.
the United States.
Okay.
Which
Okay.
so there's a lot of conflicting maybe perceptions about that. But for example, our governor, she's a little eccentric and she has her own values. What you know, I could sit here and talk about it all day. But one thing she did
Huh.
do is my mom owns like a esoteric store. That's where I met
Yeah.
Evan, and she helped my mom keep
Okay.
the
Yeah.
store open during COVID.
Uh-huh.
If they would
Oh,
have done
wow.
the regulations, she would have went out of business. You know, and it's been her
Yeah,
dream. She was
yeah,
a
yeah.
bartender for
Yeah.
30, 40 years, and then she
Yeah.
opened up this beautiful, amazing healing store that has helped so many
Yeah,
people
yeah.
already around the world, even coming. They'd
Yeah.
come to Chamberlain and into Mom's store and find me.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
wild to see, but that's how I met Evan. But
Yeah.
anyways, we got to keep her store open because of how it was in South Dakota. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So
But
what were we talking about? We were talking about the
hiking
the
and
the, the
stuff and
place, right?
okay,
Hiking
yes.
stuff
yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah. So anyway, so Hong Kong doesn't actually have a lot of well, we have a religion here. You see the Buddhist temples here. Yeah, but it's a little bit different. And so I think in Asia, usually when people look for their spirituality, they want to go for meditation. Usually they go to Thailand or they go to Bali, so
Okay.
Indonesia. So those places are the spiritual places in
The spiritual
you
hubs
go
per se.
hubs, right? You go there, you're gonna meet a lot of meditation people, and they they will do like weeks of cleansing, detox, right? Things like that's
Yep,
very
most definitely.
popular. Yeah. So that's what people do and how they connect with the body has beautiful nature, Thailand as well, and very close to Hong Kong. You basically fly 2 hours, you're in Thailand,
Oh wow.
and 3 hours you're in Bali. So it's easy for us to go. But Hong Kong, it's difficult to be spiritual, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
literally I look outside my window and I see another building's window.
Yep.
Mhm.
And they're looking at me, I'm looking at them, you know what I mean? So
Having a
yeah, exactly
podcast
like
here. You want to
that.
come on over?
Yeah, that's why you can see I have the curtains, right?
Yep.
I can't not leave them up because people will see me. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
the thing. Yeah.
That makes sense. And yeah, I understand that. It's interesting because um I've been in and out of cities, and I got to South Dakota in 2020, right during
Mm.
COVID and
Huh.
everything. And then
Yeah.
I left for a little bit. I was out in Montana, and I was kind of back in a bigger city. I was,
Mm.
Bozeman, about 60,000 people, but it's surrounded by nature and mountains, so it didn't really feel like
Yeah.
a city.
Yeah.
But I did one of those I don't know if you're familiar with Vipassana meditation. It's one of the old Buddhist. It's one of
Mm.
basically it's a meditation style that follows some of the original teachings of the Buddha, and
Okay.
they have 10-day
Mm.
silent meditation retreats where you go in and you sit
Right.
in silence for
For
basically
10 days.
12
Yeah.
hours 12 hours a day. You're just sitting there, you're meditating, you can't talk, you got no
Yeah.
phones, you can't write. And
Yeah.
it was interesting because like you can you can do that anywhere.
Yep.
You could lock
True.
yourself in your apartment for 10 days,
True.
your house in Hong Kong for 10 days
Can, yeah.
and
It
and
can.
go in
Yeah.
silence and have that same
Mm.
inward experience,
Huh.
So I mean it was interesting to kind of have that realization that
Yeah.
spirit is ever present regardless of the setting. And I remember when I lived in Boston, I remember writing about that a little bit, about how, well,
Mm.
maybe I can look at the birds as they're flying by, and as I'm taking a walk, I
Mm.
know I feel the wind on my face, right? I mean, that's that's
Yeah.
all the an embodiment of spirit. I mean, you just kind of have
Yeah.
to dive a little deeper, I think,
Be
when
more
you're
aware.
Yeah.
when you're in those environments. But you
Yeah.
know, I think that's maybe because we're in those artificial environments and we don't have that, like, oh my goodness, I'm being surrounded by spirit and nature. Like it
Mm.
disconnects us from, I
The
think,
distraction.
an aspect of
Yeah.
ourselves that is,
Yeah.
I think our culture is really yearning for, and a lot of people need. And I don't know if they know where to turn a lot of times to actually find that. I
Mm.
mean, it's why people go into church and they, and they
Huh.
establish communities in that way. But like
Yeah.
personal divination practices, um, I think they're gaining popularity because people need that.
They need to
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
Once they're grounded,
Correct.
it's like they're reset and they're like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also because, as a society, we never really taught children, right, and the importance of spirituality, right? You don't study that in school, right? And so when you become an adult, suddenly people are saying, oh, connect with your spiritual self, and you'll be like, oh, what the hell is that?
Yeah, what is that? What is
Yeah,
spirit? What spirit? A
yeah,
ghost?
like,
Right. What would
yeah,
you have said if I
yeah.
asked you that before you walked into that shop
Oh.
for the first time? I said, hey, Letao, connect with your higher self.
I would be what? No, but yeah, I think education really it's really important, right? It's more about getting people used to the concept of their own spirituality and their own sense of mysticism. And one of the dreams actually I have, I don't know ever I will be able to do that one day. One of the things I really want to do is to be able um to not to say I want to do it myself. If I can, of course I would, but I want at universities to have classes, at least optional classes. So, they can choose, right, to study either astrology or spirituality or Carl Jung's philosophy, right? Those classes, and I think those could be very, very helpful. I tried that with Hong Kong University once, actually, because I know one of their program directors. So I talked to him. I said, do you think it's possible that if you can get a green light from the university, I would love to teach this class, right? Maybe once a week as a selective class for the undergraduate students. And eventually that couldn't happen. And so I think at the end of the day, it's about, whether you're open to it, because from the, a prestigious university's perspective, they also are concerned about their reputation.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
like I say,
they
Yeah.
how it
right.
looks,
Right. They don't want people to think, oh, oh, I thought you were a scientific research institution. Now you're doing all the woo-woo stuff.
Yep.
Like, what the hell, right? So they're also a little bit concerned.
The
And this
woo-woo
also
stuff, I
happened.
like that.
This also happened with a counseling company that I worked with in the past. So it was a little bit like an counseling on through apps. Yeah, I'm not gonna say the name, but it's
Fine.
basically I was working with them. So they would assign you with clients, right? Because sometimes people want to talk to someone through an app, right?
Yep.
So they will match you with a patient, right? And they will
That's their
talk to you through
comfort
the
zone
app.
anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they're not comfortable really going to a psychologist's office. So, that app is to help people, right? And so, and of course, there were a lot of counselors, right? They, who are working with them as freelancers, and that was one of them. And they do a monthly workshop for all the counselors internally, right? And I said, they were asking me if I want to do a workshop. I said, actually, I'm a spiritual counselor, so I love to talk about the moon cycle, right, the lunar cycle, and how we work with the lunar cycle to manifest our dreams. Oh my God, this topic, which is like, oh my God, no, we need to talk to our top management. This is a little bit, like, beyond our scope, right? And then management, chit chat, right? Talk.
It's just knowledge, though.
Exactly, right. And
knowledge.
eventually the CEO actually called me and said,
Wow.
okay, if you really want to do this, we can let you do this, but you have to send your presentation to us. We have to check and make sure that nothing you're saying is too woo-woo. Right, because we are a scientific, again, company, and we have a reputation.
We are way too mainstream for that.
Yeah. And I said that's fine, but I feel I'm being censored, if you know what I mean.
Oh, most definitely.
I said I'm totally fine. It's your company, right? It's your staff who you want to hire to do presentation. That's your freedom.
That's your choice. Yep.
I don't want to be censored like that. If you feel that I might bring bad reputation to your company, let's not do this at all.
Yep.
One day when you are more open-minded, when you're more open-minded, welcome to contact me again. I'm always here, but I just don't want to go through this now. And so eventually, again, that didn't happen, right? So after these two things, I did a little bit of reflection. Why did those things happen? And I think eventually it's because we don't have the education. Somehow at a young age, the society is teaching us not to believe in these things and to stay away from these things, because either they're scams, right, or they're bad for you, or they're just they're not scientific, and you shouldn't believe in those things. And that's why when we grow up, we have this natural, what do you call this, stigma against against spirituality, right? And looking for guidance through myths and through meditation, these kind of things. And so so my hope is one day, it's not about which one do we choose, but it's more about how can we embrace each other. How can we see? For me, I embrace scientific research because I did my master program in counseling. I studied psychology from a scientific perspective. And one day I hope they will also to be able to embrace us.
Well, it's nice that you studied all facets of it, because it's not just spirituality, it's not just science, it's everything. It's all of it.
They feed into one another.
That's kind of I wanted to ask you a question, Letao. Do you think maybe the reason why not just education systems in Hong Kong or the United States, but just kind of in general, do you think that's kind of like their agenda, though?
Is it
deliberate?
Yeah, is it deliberate? Well, is it a deliberate thing, do you think? Or because it seems to me personally it is.
Depending on the country, I think. Depending on I guess every country, every institution has their own plan, right? Their own agenda, what they're afraid of. But at least based on my understanding with the company that I was talking about, and also the university I'm talking about, I think it is about their reputation. Because they have nothing against me, right? I mean, because I do have a good relation with them. So they actually said very clear, they said it's not that we don't like you, but we there are people who will judge our institution, and I we are just not ready to be judged like that. And I
Yeah.
said, that's fine, right? One day when you're ready, but yeah, that's totally fine.
I
Yeah.
always think that the people that are judging other people about spirituality are the ones that
Mm.
really know how impactful and how profound spirituality is. But it's
Yeah.
the negative aspect of the low vibrating aspect coming out because they're scared. It's
Yeah.
They're scared.
it's very
And some
scary.
people, it's because maybe they had a bad experience, maybe with spirituality. It's possible, yeah. I had a client who was the first time she came to me, she was extremely difficult to counsel, because it's almost like she was fighting me during the session. And so of course, as a service provider, when you see someone who is so what's the right word, who is very argumentative, let's put it this way, right? Even though they are trying to, they're engaging with your service, but they're almost like fighting you, right? You say one thing, they will say three things back. And you can feel that they're tense, and of course it's not a pleasant
Almost like a
experience,
defense
but
mechanism, kind of.
100%, yeah.
Yep.
But later, after talking to her for a while, then you realize that the reason why she behaved like that was really like a defensive mechanism, because she was trying to guard herself, and she said she in the past she had experience with a reader, and it was not a good experience for her. So we call that the transference. So your past memories will make you judge certain things in a certain way. And the thing is, the previous reader she had was also a guy and was around my age, so it's naturally for her to see me similar as that, right? And she was think that, okay, he was awful, and I can't trust you either because you kind of look similar to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
So
I
yeah,
understand.
yes. So I think it's also sometimes people have this stigma is because they had bad experience with someone else, and so they need an opportunity to experience what is really good for them.
Yeah.
And that will help them change their mind. Yeah. So
Definitely.
coming back to this university thing, I really wish that we could just at least do one semester, right? If this is not popular and people don't like it, fine, we can drop it, right? But that one semester, once a week class could actually, and I really had the confidence that would become one of the most popular
Well, so
I
many
was
people
gonna
so
say,
right?
fast, Letao, that they would, you couldn't stop them from growing.
well, and
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
interesting, Letao, I majored in education. I didn't, like I said, I was thinking about doing, counseling and psychology further studies, but I did take one class in college that was a counseling based class. It was about intro to counseling, and I went into it with the perspective of, okay, I can learn about counseling from a socio-emotional perspective and help students and kind of, dive into a little bit of psychological perspective of it. But it was interesting. And after it was a class that was during the summer because I needed a summer credit. And you actually traveled down to Costa Rica for the class. And it took place in Costa Rica. It was a multi-week class. And when I got back, my mom asked me if I joined a cult because it blew open the spiritual side of me. That was very much, if I were to, you talked about your awakening moment being sort of in the store. For me, this was my conscious awakening moments. There was things that led up to it that kind of exposed me over the years to different, I had an intrigue in spirituality, but the class itself was designed around counseling, but it was they took it in and it's almost hard to explain because they took all the counseling terms and the psychology terms, but they combined it with the experience of being in Costa Rica and the activities we were doing and what we were learning with spiritual practices and learning about different there was like dance movement and therapy, and we did acupuncture, and we did, we were doing meditative things and like learning about sort of the spiritual things, and it blew open the door of self-awareness for me to my own spiritual side. So, and that was a university accredited class, right?
That's
So,
amazing. That sounds awesome.
yeah, and
Sounds like I want to go there.
I gotta go and find it. Tiny little school called Leslie University, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I do think that's starting to emerge, but coming from the, having a teaching degree and having worked in, the public schools across America here, I agree
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
I go in and I substitute teach now. I just go in, and it's fun to interact with different kids in different
Yeah,
subject
yeah.
matters. I really
Yeah,
enjoy
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sitting in there and I'm looking at what we're going to be doing. I'm like, what is the point?
Why are we doing
Why are we doing
Mm-hmm.
this? What if
We're
we
doing
spent
this, yeah.
what if we spent this hour and a half instead of talking about things that I know I learned about, but I clearly didn't matter to me in my own
Yeah.
development. I mean, there's for
Yeah,
some
yeah.
people who want to take these subjects, I think it's a good thing. We should have them. We should offer them. There's a need to learn about the foundations for a lot of the things in our school. But
Yeah.
what if we spent that 90 minutes every day, really honing in on the spiritual side or
Ourselves, yeah.
myth or looking at ourself and
Yeah.
self-reflection and really engaging in some of this
Yeah.
deeper inner work with students instead of just trying to
Mm.
memorize. I
Yeah.
studied history too. Memorize dates in a history book or
Yeah, yeah.
memorize,
Mm.
we're kind of just
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
busy work, which I think is often done.
Yeah.
You got to follow the standard,
Kind of
right?
like a filler type.
100%.
And what's sad, I think, about it is I don't think it's at the fault of teachers or even principals or administrators often because they're so hand-tied and bound to the standards that are required
Tradition.
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
tradition of how we're
yeah,
teaching. So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
I
yeah,
think teachers are beginning to innovate and want to find ways to really connect on that deeper level and
yeah, yeah,
strive for students
yeah.
to find a deeper purpose and deeper meaning and all of that.
Mm.
But at the same time,
100%. Yeah,
because they're
yeah,
so restricted and they have to go by the book in so many ways,
yeah,
it's very difficult to
get there.
integrate that, and you
yeah,
kind of have to
yeah,
do it
yeah,
in the smaller moments as you're
yeah,
building
yeah,
relationships with
Most
the
definitely.
kids. You got to
I
really
yeah.
get to them on a more personal level and kind of instill wisdom through the lesson that you're teaching if you can. And
Mm,
so it's
mm,
but it's not the emphasis, which I think is
mm.
part of the issue. But I think everybody has an in if you can get there
Yeah.
through their barriers, through like you were talking about. Like with that client, I'm sure were you able to break through with them? What was their in,
Yeah, what?
Yeah, eventually, yes, because I think that client really took a long time, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because also, as a counselor, you have to be careful with being triggered by them as well. Because, when someone behaves in a very cantankerous way, that triggers you. So
Yeah.
naturally you feel like you're rude, right? But
Yeah.
but as a professional, you cannot behave like you cannot have an argument with her, right? So you have to be the bigger person there.
Yep.
You have to be patient with them.
Mm.
And honestly, if I'm not having a very good day, specifically if I am, very engulfed with my own personal problems, usually I will choose not to see a difficult client on that day. I will reschedule because I know I don't have the energy
Good awareness.
to
That's good
counsel
awareness.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You have to. Otherwise, it just becomes,
Because then you get to
you
deal with
trigger
it
me.
afterwards.
Yeah, and
After
then
that engagement,
they trigger you, you trigger
Yep.
them, and then it's just not a counseling session anymore. And at the end, also as a professional, you will feel remorseful. You
Yep.
feel, oh, I didn't do a great job. What did I just do in the session with her? So it's a lot of, yeah. You have to be very
I can tell
self-aware
you're a
of your
very good
energy.
healer, Letao. That's good job. I can tell.
After, thank you. I try.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, it's a good level of self-awareness
Yeah.
because I mean, even in like, just personal friendships or family, I think, like I said, when I came back from Costa Rica, my mom asked if I joined a cult, right? I'm like, well,
That's so funny.
I'm like, no, but why would you, and it's kind of like, huh? Are you, getting a comment like that, it's like, are you rejecting me now? Who am, as who I am and what I'm discovering, right? So,
Funny story, real quick, Letao. Evan actually had taught me how to read tarot and kind of connect. He was kind of like my first really person I've ever had read for me or anything like that. And that was during my spiritual awakening 3 years ago or so. During the COVID, it was really weird. Maybe a little bit before COVID, that just pushed me more. But anyways, what happened was one day at Mom's store, I was just very happy, smiling ear to ear. And I walk into Mom's store and my sister was in there and she just looks up and she says, "Why are you smiling?" And I'm just like, what? No different than being aware of kind of where that's coming from, but also like
Yeah. Yeah.
why is that bother you? Or,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what,
Mm.
there was nothing wrong in the sense of Evan going to Costa Rica and having, an awakening per se, but sometimes it don't resonate enough people that aren't really seeing that. So then it's like, I don't know,
Mm.
it's difficult. So then you kind of have
Yeah.
to separate from that. So you're not
Separate.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That comes with experience, I think, when it comes to counseling. Yeah, because you cannot be too distant. You have to be emotionally connected with them, but you cannot be too connected because then you get triggered by your own
yes,
stuff.
yes,
But then once you get triggered by that, then it's no longer about them. Then you start to focus on, oh, what I experienced that. Oh, that was
hmm
sad for me, right? And then yeah, it's just
yep.
dangerous. So yeah,
I
it's
get
not easy, and
exactly
that
what you're saying. Yep.
yeah, and so that's why sometimes people think, oh, you can make a lot of money because based on what you charge. And I said, but the problem is we can't have volume
Mhm.
because there are only certain amount of clients we can see, and we cannot because I don't have the energy for that. And
No.
so one of the things about this profession is you can never become really rich
Hmm.
because the people you can see is limited, and the price is already set in there. So
Yep.
you know what I mean? So
No, I
you
get it.
already know
Yep.
roughly every month how much you're earning,
Yep.
unless you have other business on the side.
Yep.
But usually for counselors, I believe that people who really choose this profession just as to do what this is, they're really not for money.
No.
Yeah.
Because you won't be able to get a lot of money just be a counselor. Yeah.
No.
Right. Well, and I think you do
Yeah.
it for what you get out of the healing yourself.
The
Because when
healing.
when you
Yeah.
when you help another person,
The best gift.
there's an inner joy and peace that comes from that.
Yes.
And to
Yeah.
kind of what you were just talking about earlier, it just made me think of a Ram Dass quote where he said, um, "If you think you're truly enlightened, go spend a week with your family." You know, and
Oh, that's
it's a great test of patience to
Yeah.
kind of
yeah.
uh, bring yourself to test your,
Yeah.
whether it's new boundaries or new ideas and
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
way that you want to carry yourself against
Yeah.
the traditions of what you were raised within. And you kind of almost
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to establish
Mm.
um, a deeper relationship, not just with
Yeah.
yourself, but everybody else in your life to
Yep.
find new understanding, to show,
Yep.
hey, this is where I'm coming. And you're not trying to force it down people's throats, and but it's a very like,
Mm.
demonstrate. This is who I am, what I'm interested in, and this is what I'm expressing. And
Mm.
it's a learning
Reflecting and
experience for
helpful.
both.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it
Yep.
pushes people outside of their comfort zone when somebody
Yeah.
else
Yeah.
is expressing something new and being
Yep.
somebody,
My
try.
sister asking.
Oh, yeah, just the why are you smiling? She's not used to it, and then
Yep.
it probably wasn't even said in malice, but it was like a jolt of something. So it's the same thing. My
Mm.
mom didn't ask me if I was in a cult because out of malice. It was
Yeah.
it was probably more genuine concern,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
um
It's funny. My parents still think I'm in a cult. Yeah,
uh,
they think I'm organizing a cult. No, but no,
My
because
my
my
mom's
because
in our cult, so it's all
I was
good.
gonna say, let's how
oh, that's good.
I
That's good.
even us out a little
That's
bit.
good. That's good. Yeah, we need that. Yeah. No, because it's what I do is very, very different from what they know. Right. I mean,
Mhm.
because they work in a complete different industry. So when I chose this path, and for them it was a shock. But now better. Yeah. But
Yep.
but when I say they still think I'm in a cult, kind of, because in a way, my father is still thinking, oh, he's just going through a phase. He's gonna get back to a corporate job, and he just taking his time, doing this stuff. And
Yeah.
but I'm like, well, not really, but whatever you want
Love
to
it.
believe in. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Well, and do you? It's tough because I'm very interested in bringing people back to
Mm.
stories like the mythic heroes like you write about,
Mm.
right? And
Mm.
bringing people back to the roots because it lives within all of us. But do you think like because of how I'd say disconnected our culture has become from it, like is this a time where you think we need to continually rewrite these stories and retell them in a way that is resonant in a modern lens, and that people can because
Mm.
it's very difficult to talk about a story from let's say 2000 years ago and make somebody
Mm,
feel personally
What it was.
connected,
Yep.
like to that time, to that culture, to the, because with the way our culture is now, being so disconnected from spirit, it can be difficult to connect on that spiritual level. So like, where does is this like do you feel like this could be a time for new storytelling, and what would those stories be? Is it the same stories of old with the same like what that's kind of a loaded question, I suppose,
Well,
but
I understand what you mean. Yeah, I understand. So I think the stories do not have to be, about those human experiences that happened like thousands of years ago.
mhm,
Sometimes I can resonate with a story that happened maybe 50 years ago,
Yep.
yeah.
because recently I've been reading a lot of historical things about the Qing dynasty in China, which was a final dynasty. I don't know if you've ever seen this old movie called The Last Emperor.
Oh yeah.
You know, yeah, 30 years ago, 30
Yep.
years ago, yeah, something like that, right? By an Italian director, and he shot this whole thing in China. And sometimes I actually see those stories as extremely inspirational. What happened during that time, right? The imperial family and the invaders, right? And how they manipulated the citizens and the Chinese people and things like that. So when you read those stories, right, and you realize that, okay, so you get excited, or you get triggered, or you feel all different kind of emotions when you read something. And to me, the mythology is just a special type of stories, because they have been told and retold thousands of years, and still these days we're writing them and we're reading them for children. And but well, I think we don't have to limit ourselves in any type of stories. I don't know if recently there's a very famous Chinese video game coming out. I don't know if you guys know. It's called Black
Is
Myth
it called
Wukong.
Yeah,
Yeah, Wukong. Yeah.
Sun Wukong?
Are,
Yeah.
so that story is actually Chinese mythology. It's
I'm
from
buying that on Monday.
you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Oh
It's such an
man, I'm a
amazing
huge
game. Yeah,
I'm a huge
yeah.
gamer. I don't have a lot of time to play games anymore, but
Uh,
ever since
uh,
I was a little boy till now, like I'm probably the best
yeah,
gamer in the world actually, but
yeah. So
but that
if
game
you
looks
read the
amazing, yeah.
yeah, the visual effect and everything, right? But also the stories is just fascinating. And this Wukong is basically this character originally came from a Chinese mythological literature called The Journey to the West, written in the 16th century. So that was 400 years ago, basic 500 years ago.
One of my favorite
And
stories.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
The monsters and the gods and goddesses and
Uh-huh.
their relationship with human being. And so a lot of young Chinese generation, we learn those stories, right? And you might gain a lot of wisdom from the story Journey to the West. There's another one that is very popular in Chinese mythology, which is called the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. And that one is it's fascinating. I highly recommend
Whoa.
you,
Letao, what was
hmm?
that again? I don't
Oh, Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
I've never
yeah.
heard of that before. Wow.
It's fascinating. You can
I'll deep
Google it
dive it tonight for
online.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. So this literature always been popular in Asia. So not just in China, but in Japan, in South Korea, and in Southeast Asia. And it's a little bit similar to Journey to the West in a way that they are half mythology and half history. It's a bit like that. It's like a mythical version of the actual history, but they
Okay.
kind of like
Yeah.
made it more magical, right?
Yep.
And for example, there was a character called Zhuge Liang, and he was supposed to just to be a war strategist, but in the mythical version, he was a wizard, and he was able to control the weather, during on the battlefield. And he could use the weather to deter
Oh
the
wow.
enemy and things like that. So it kind of, like a little bit like Lord of the Ring, but in
Yep.
the Chinese version, right? And so there's a lot of stories, right, out there. I think they're all there for people to read and for people to enjoy, and you might just get some wisdom out of that. And like what Evan, what you mentioned, right? How do we deal with those stories? Well, sometimes I just think that we need to read them, and we need to encourage people to read them instead of asking them what do you learn from the story. Just let them enjoy the stories first,
Mm,
I like that.
that's so
right?
important.
Mm,
Because in the education system, like I was saying,
yeah.
it's a lot of memorization for this. What did you learn? Like, what is it? And you're going in with a very much of an intent to
Mm,
almost educate and like, okay, I need to memorize
yeah.
this, or oh, okay, I need to learn this. And as
Yeah,
opposed to just
yeah,
going in, because I mean, who doesn't love a good story? I mean, as
exactly. Yeah.
Create
without
Mm,
imagination.
just go in with intrigue and not as
Yeah,
much expectation, and let the story tell
yeah,
you what
yeah.
you need to learn from it. Because I think everybody's going to pick something different that they really resonate with, right?
100%. 100%. Yeah. And even with the same story, we might learn different things anyway. We might have our own interpretation. Um, you look at a story, maybe I learned something related to maybe family value, but you read it and you think I can't relate this, associate myself with family value, but I think this is more about my career goal. So possible, and that's why in the guidebook in Mythic Heroes, in the first chapter, I specifically emphasize on this. I said, of course, you can read the guidebook will give you some kind of general guidance about the teaching, but I would really encourage everyone to interpret the cards your own way. So whatever your intuition will tell you, this is what it means to you. Trust that and apply that in your life,
I
right?
love how you
We
say
don't want,
that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That's how I
We don't
kind of
want,
sorry. That's how I kind of do the same exact thing as far as I don't like
yeah.
to impose it on people.
Correct.
No.
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing dogmatic or self-righteous about the teaching. The teaching is just
Mm.
one of my versions when I read the myths and as an author, what I want to share. But I encourage everyone to interpret them in your own way, and that's the treasure that you can find in using this deck, I think.
Yeah, most definitely.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful, because yeah, that's kind of how we've come to explore tarot and explore myth and explore, all the stories we've been exploring the last several years. So, that's
Mm,
why I podcast, to hear stories, to hear the perspectives, just from a place of fascination. I don't
yeah.
come in with one particular
No.
thing that I want to learn
Yeah.
or take away,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
like
100%.
every
Yeah.
person, every story,
Yeah.
everything can be our teacher when we kind of open ourselves up to it.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's like a type of experiential wisdom, I feel, that is very it's just not emphasized enough, I
Mm,
don't think. And
yeah.
it's kind
Yeah.
of scary, because that it isn't emphasized, because I look at, there's so much chaos in the world with the headlines and this and that and country
Yeah. Yeah.
division, and it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
although some of it I think is a little sometimes overblown, because I go outside and there's no civil war, right? There's no people beating each other
Mm.
up in the way that the news would tell me necessarily, right? I think
Uh,
people are still connected in a lot of ways. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
just wonder what the world is going to look like 100 years from now, let's say, when my great grandchildren are running this earth, running through the earth, like, what kind of world are they inheriting
Ah,
if
ah.
we don't continue to emphasize the stories, and you're talking about bringing the spiritual perspective into universities. Like, if we don't do
Mm,
that,
mm,
there's a reason you
mm.
want to do that, because it's gonna make the type of impact that I think
It's gonna
this world
change the world.
needs.
Yeah,
Right. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I just, and that's not to create a doomer view on the whole world, but
No.
it for
Mm,
me, it
mm.
creates a very much a sense of urgency and
Yeah,
purpose
yeah,
behind what I do,
yeah.
behind even just us doing tarot readings, or, a conversation like this, because it's the type of conversations that I think need to be
Help shift the
had.
paradigm.
Yeah, to help kind of
Mm,
shift.
Transition into what we're opening up to, you know.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to say, all right, the world is going to look like this in 50 years when we shift the paradigm. I don't think
Yeah.
that's how it works.
mm.
But
Oh,
it
Yeah, yeah.
feels, if anything, it's more of a return to sort of our mythological roots and the deeper
Absolutely, yeah.
aspects of self that have been neglected just through more of a materialistic and
Yeah.
very physical culture, as opposed
Mm,
to embracing all of the esoteric wisdom and truth
mm.
that is
Yeah,
just as
yeah.
prevalent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in the future, we might become a part of the myth anyway.
Mm.
Everyone creates their own myth at the end of the day. I mean, when we talk about the stories such as, Hercules, right? But in the ancient days, I do believe Hercules existed, but maybe very different from, what was depicted
yep.
in the myth, right? Maybe it was an exaggerated version. But I remember years ago when I visited Greece, because I really wanted to see those ancient temples and the ruins, right? And I wanted to go to Delphi, the oracle, the famous
Oracle.
oracle, right? The temple for Apollo. And I was talking to a local Greek guy, because we were on the trip together. And I said, do you actually think that, those ancient heroes, Hercules, Theseus, do you think they existed, or it was just, a purely a fairy tale? And he said, Greek people do believe that they existed, but it was a little bit exaggerated, right? So I think from, let's say maybe 5,000 years ago, based on, if you ask Hercules himself, right, what you're doing, probably he wouldn't believe that he was creating a myth. He was just thinking, I'm doing my own thing, right? I have
Right.
I have challenges I have to overcome. I have to lift this big rock. Otherwise, I can't save this girl. But at the end of the day, eventually he became the myth, and we read about. And I think we are all creating our own myths, and hopefully one day our myths will be important enough for people to talk about.
That's why we're doing this, Letao.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly it. And
All
that,
three of us are kings sitting here talking to each other. So
absolutely, yeah,
that's so
yeah.
funny about what would Hercules have thought 5,000. I'd never had that thought before, but you're right. Hercules would have been like, bro, what are you talking about? They're
Talking
not going to
about,
be
yeah,
talking about me 5,000 years from now. I am not that
exactly.
important.
it's not even how you say my name, you think.
Yeah, yeah, probably different in Greek,
Yeah.
ancient Greek, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's yeah.
And do you find that these stories kind of
Mm.
trend like is it the same stories? Because I've noticed in different spiritual traditions, there's a
Mm.
lot of the same concepts in Christianity as Buddhism, as Islam, and
Yeah.
Zoroastrianism, and you kind of start looking across these different cultures, and we see a
Correct.
lot of the same stories.
Yeah.
Do you think there is? I don't know if this is the right way to ask it, but there is that one origin point and something we can trace it back to, or is this all part of, even if it's different names and different stories, they're speaking to this, and
Mm.
this is why I resonate with the hero's journey so much, because I think it's an archetypal journey that exists within
Thank you.
ourselves, right?
Yes, that's
Is
what I
it
was gonna
just
say. Yeah.
speaking to more general archetypal wisdom
Mm.
that lives
Mm.
within all of us, and all of these different cultures tapped into that through their myths?
Yeah. I think, yeah. Well, when you look at different versions of myth, right? Let's say you look at the Greek myth, and then you look at the Roman myth, and also the Nordic, right? In Northern Europe, their myths, you will usually find some commonalities there, even though they have different names. Even in the Indian mythology, right? Hindu mythology, you also find similar things. There was an author, I forgot her name. She wrote a book. I think it's called the Mythical Astrology or something. I'll find out later. I read her book, and she was comparing those different myths with each other. Let's say, the when we talk about the goddess of love, so the Aphrodite in the Greek version, Venus in the Roman version, and we have Ishtar from the Hindu version. And the stories, even though they're very different, right? But even though they're different, but you can find some similarities in them, and they experience some kind of similar things, right? So I do believe that there's that kind of subconscious archetype that we are all trying to build, and how we understand love. Because when we talk about the goddess of love, basically it's a human, in terms of human psychology, is how we reflect on love, what love is actually. And so we build this female character there, and we materialize the concept of love onto a woman, and think her experience tells us the story of love, and things like that, right? And when you read different versions of the myths, you find, oh, okay, so that's interesting. That's how, as human beings, how we perceive love.
Yep.
And that's what love means to us. Yeah. So
Mm.
there are some definitely relationships, right? Close relationships between them, but I don't think like there's one myth there, and then under that myth there's different versions. I think we all develop them around the same time, parallel. Yeah. Based on our understanding about love, about other things as well. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that kind of makes
Mm.
it kind of almost like creates a life map for people then, in a world that doesn't, there's no map on how to live life,
No.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if only. But I think in a way, maybe that's the kind of guidance and structure we
Yeah.
can use to get through this human experience, because it's not meant to be easy. There's a reason we
Yeah.
have the myth of Medea, right? There's a
Yep.
reason we
Yep.
have all these figures who go through the darkness, and it's because we're
Yep.
going to experience it. There's no running from it.
Yeah.
We're all going to experience loss. We're all going to, I draw the amount of times that in my life, the Three of Swords comes out and just, boom, just
yeah.
all the time. You've seen it,
Yeah.
I know I tried to get you to get a tattoo of it.
Of the three. I don't want to like
Three of Swords, a tattoo. Oh God.
I feel like if I got a tattoo of the Three of Swords, I would be destining myself to live that out forever, perpetually. So I don't know how I feel about that. But I think these exist so that we can navigate and have a life map for this type of this journey that we're all just embarking on. None of us really know exactly why or exactly how.
It's a great way to reflect
on
your path.
Yeah.
What it is in a sense.
Some sort of archetypal structure, and that that's the goal of my own tarot deck that I'm creating. I've done a lot of just sort of the more I've written out for every card the interpretations and sort of some of how it connects to the hero's journey. But what we were talking about the other day is taking it to the next step. And we were talking about this yesterday, very much like yours, where we incorporate the storytelling aspect to the cards as well, and sort of bring in a mythological perspective so that people can kind of, as they're going through the hero's journey within themselves, because I kind of look at it, I traced, when you look at the journey from the Fool to the World, and it's cyclical, it's infinite, and it goes on. It very much follows the three aspects of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, the three stages, right? If you break up the major arcana cards, right? And so you can kind of trace yourself, and I found myself like, oh, now I'm on the Lovers. And I've been able to kind of, it's fascinating to kind of reflect and see that, because I've traced it. I've traced at different points in my life. I've traced where I'm at. And since it kind of jumps around a little bit, but you can kind of see how the journey plays out. And I know that, all right, I'm going to be going into the death card. It seems to come out right around every year around this time. Right around,
like the cycle of the
it's actually
the cycle, right?
And I think we can kind of start to trace the cyclical nature of our own being through this type of structure, which is what makes it resonant for me, because like I need that. That's what I need personally. I do very well with, I'm very spontaneous and free flowing, but the card I've always resonated as my own personal archetype. I'm on the Fool's journey. Like, I'm the Fool. It's fine. Spontaneity is my greatest gift, but impulsiveness is my greatest weakness. So it's like a kind of neat having that archetypal structure. Even though I can, with that allows spontaneity and free flowing, it grounds me, and I think a lot of people need that sort of grounding structure, which is why I want to bring it to people and why I think it can be so impactful. But there's not a lot that exists like that, No.
Letao, can I ask you a question about what archetype of your phase are you in your own deck?
Well, in terms of mythology, like mythological figures,
not so much in mythology, but as far as like your birthday.
Yeah, with the mythological,
with actual your astrological sign and.
Oh, so I'm a Cancer. So my sun sign is I'm a sun sign Cancer. So
Really?
actually in this deck, I really resonated with the chapter that I wrote for Orpheus, which I assigned him with Cancer anyway, right? I've been feeling very drawn to this to Orpheus for a long time, actually, many years, and I'm still feeling him in me, actually. So there's a lot of a personal, based on my experience, right, my childhood and everything. So, and also one of the things Orpheus experienced was how to overcome his own insecurity, because in the story he looked back because of his insecurity. He wanted to have a guarantee. He wanted to make sure that it will happen for him, and so he looked back. He broke the promise that he made to Hades. And I think especially in my 20s, right, and early 30s, I had a lot of that. I wanted to look back and to confirm and reconfirm that it's there and it's always going to be there for me. And that was not good for my personal growth. And so, so that's the character that I resonate with a lot, in my life, in general.
I'm trying to find. I've just found it right now as soon as you said that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so Orpheus, I think I associated him with the first decade of Cancer. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep, most
Yeah,
definitely.
and the key
What's
and
the
the
dates
keyword
on
is
that?
feeling.
Just out of
June
curiosity.
21st to June 30th.
Okay.
Uh, but my birthday is July actually.
Oh no, so
But
so that would be the next one.
Yes.
so then it will be the last one, Althea. Okay, protection. Because my birthday is July the 13th.
Oh,
So
okay.
Oh, you're a July.
yeah.
So my birthday is July 26th.
Okay.
Oh, you're a Leo. Okay, you're a Leo.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
but
I'm
we're
in my astrological sign. I was born at 5:59 in the morning. That was when the sun rose on that day. So I'm a double Leo and a Cancer.
oh, I see. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Later, I might, I'll have a look at your chart, yeah, based on your birthday. But okay, so if did you say your rising sign is Cancer?
No, yes, my rising sign. My sun is a Leo, my moon is a Leo, and then my rising is a Cancer.
Oh, okay. So your sun and moon probably are in the second house. Oh, sorry, in the 12th house.
The 12th
On your
house,
chart.
yes.
So yeah, also that's why. So there's a lot of mystical and spiritual component on your chart actually. If both your sun are in the 12th house, this is about you having the ability to download a lot of mystical wisdom through your meditation and through your spiritual
Wow, you're
development.
blowing my
Actually,
mind
yeah.
right now. How do you, because I'm not.
We were just talking about that though.
Deny that you know that because you know that it's awesome to watch that, but to hear that and be reminded of it again, it's just like, man, how does this keep happening?
One of those
Yeah, well,
synchronicities, you know?
I did want
Yeah.
to could I read him my tarot poem that I wrote? So I'm
Oh, yeah.
a poet. I
Oh,
like
me
to
too,
write.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Evan does that. He inspired me once again. Like I've always loved to write down things, but just watching
Yeah.
him grow and show me all these things that you can kind of tap into, it really put me on a
Yeah.
great path. So, but I actually wrote this poem so it's been 8 days ago, and you asked me to be on the podcast.
Probably right after that, yeah.
About 5. So I literally probably wrote this for you, Letao.
Oh wow. Okay.
Oh, I mean, honestly, I did.
Without consciously
Without
knowing it.
I did not know. I did not know that.
Okay, let's listen to it. Yeah.
Evan,
Do you have
read it?
Yeah, I'll pull it up. Or do you want me to read it? I can read it.
I'm a little nervous. Sorry.
I got no stage fright.
No, that's the thing. And now that I see it, it's probably for Letao. So I just want to listen and.
Yes. Let me see. All right, here's the one. Okay, so this is the tarot poem that you wrote. Now he sent it to me right when he wrote it, and I'm like, because we're always sending poems back and forth, and we're putting out he's gonna have some so I put out a poetry book every year, and I'm putting out a new one in about a month or two, and I'm gonna have some of his poems in there. I'll send you a copy when
thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll send you one. But here's his poem. In realms where mystic shadows dance, a wizard heart finds true romance. With tarot cards, the future's glance, unveiling secrets at a glance. A Leo's fire, fierce and bright, guides the hand in the mystic light. A lion's roar, the wizard's might, inspired the world through the darkest night. Each card a story, ancient and wise, connecting stars and earthly ties. The fool's first step, the magician's rise, in tarot's realm, no truth bellies. The high priestess whispers secrets old. The empress nurtures strong and bold. The emperor's rule, the hierophant's fold. In tarot's weave, all truths are told. The wheel of fortune turns its face. The hanged man's pause, a sacred space. Death's transformation, a new embrace. In tarot's dance, we find our place. The star's hope, the moon's deep dreams. The sun's bright light, the world redeems. In every card, a thread that seems to weave our lives in cosmic schemes. As wizard reader, Leo's flames, you bridge the world, no two the same. Inspire the hearts, ignite the name of tarot's truth, eternal claim. For in this dance of cards and fate, we find the source, the cosmic gate. Connected all, we resonate. In tarot's world, we navigate. That's the poem.
Wow. This is amazing. Wow. You should get this published. Seriously.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Wow, this is really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah.
I appreciate
it. So both of you wrote this together or
Well,
Anthony, you wrote?
Oh,
Anthony.
No, so we went on kind of a journey last weekend. We went camping on the Missouri River, and we were having kind of like an improv. We like to
Yeah.
rhyme and sing it around the campfire, just having fun, whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
him and my brother-in-law, they put me on the spot, and like I'm a very deep thinker as far as like I can coordinate it very well, but when I'm put on the spot, it's very hard for me to embrace the light in that aspect
Yeah.
because I don't want to do something wrong or say something. So I'm very insecure when it comes to that. My image. I'm I want to be the good side. Well, so then I wrote him 3 poems. I wrote him one personally, and then I wrote the one about the tarot, and then the what was the third one that I had written?
Trifecta of
The
light.
trifecta of like of our original podcast. We kind of started together just to have fun and talk to people, but now we kind of
Yeah, it's all under the
give
same
me an
guys.
honorary spot here. But so I wrote that one, but it was I think since we started talking 4 years ago almost now, I've probably written over 100 poems. So
wow.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's amazing. So both of you write poetry, right?
all the time. It's
Okay,
kind of been my creative outlet. I mean,
he already has a book.
I published this
Oh,
one.
amazing.
I published this one last year, to Marshal Love Against Tyranny, with the thought love and tyranny is kind of the
I saw this on Amazon.
Hey,
Yes,
that's
yes,
wonderful.
yeah.
And this one, the love and tyranny, the idea behind it is because I was out in Montana for a couple of years, and I was sitting outside with some friends. We were just having a very deep, profound conversation, and one of my good friends, he asked me, because we were talking about love, and we were talking about tyranny in the world, and kind of how to change the paradigm, and he said, well, how do you marshal love against tyranny? And I sat there and I'm like, I don't know, But to me, I really it got me really reflecting. And so that's what the poems it seems, as I was, and I didn't necessarily have this conscious intention when I started writing all of them, but it was the idea of love and tyranny as sort of a modern take on the classic story of good and evil and man's duality, right? And the beast that lives within all of us, right? And so can you marshal love against tyranny? I don't necessarily think so. I think the only way you can actually do it is to let it be, which is one of my other friends chimed in right away and said, I just let it be. And I'm like, no, that's too simple. I don't like that. We need to let me write 20 poems about it, and let me explore the cosmos on this one for a bit. And it all came back to, well, you just got to let it be its thing, right? You can't. The second you marshal something, it means to almost like take force, and like with in like a militaristic sense. The second you're marshaling something, you're taking yourself out of love, right? You can't force love. So I'm like, let it be. But so, I think tarot for both of us and poetry, they're kind of intertwined in a way.
It's an expression.
Yeah, very much a creative expression in that sense.
Would you mind, Letao? So I'm not. So both of you guys do tarot with a lot of people. I mean, sessions or whatnot. I have done tarot with quite a few people, but it's never in the intent of like them searching me out, or I should say, like knowing that I do it. It's more so me trying to like give a gift if somebody that I think is going to resonate it with. Would you mind? I know I don't know how much time you have, but would you mind if I drew a card for you? I just want to personally kind of connect with you in a way that maybe you can resonate with too. I know that you're always giving readings probably, and always. And that's one thing that I have been a counselor and juvenile facilities for a long time. So I like to help
absolutely
people.
Absolutely.
So I was just wondering if I could the deck.
Why don't we
using,
actually? Why don't we pull a card for each other?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. I want to do that.
Wait. Yeah, so I have a Rider Waite here, and do I have somewhere here? Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, a smaller, a mini version.
Okay,
I have
that's the one I got too.
That's the exact same one that he has.
Oh really? Oh,
the mini Rider Waite,
awesome.
The pocket one.
Yeah,
the deck that I is my deck that I just read from all the time. I have numerous decks, but it's called the the Tarot Illuminati.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why it jumped out, Mom sells tarot cards and oracle cards at her store, many of decks, and she's very tapped in with that. But I'm kind of one of those guys that like wants to reflect even words, you know, in
Yeah.
a sense of illumination is something great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conspiracy, you know, type of things of that even saying it. Now I understand there might
Mm.
be, you know, aspects or groups or people, but this is me thinking about the illumination of the light of the card. So that's kind of
Yeah.
how I
Okay.
resonated towards it. It was kind of just reading it kind of makes me feel weird. It's kind of funny because it's like,
It's
I have
always
no
so
Yeah.
spot on.
skepticism, you know, like,
Yeah.
but
Of
it's
course. Yeah.
so pure
So,
though, Letao.
so
I'm
Anthony, maybe you pull a card for me. I pull a
okay.
card for Evan, and Evan will pull a card for you. So
That's
Yeah.
we
beautiful.
do,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Well, pull a card. And I'm going to use the Rider-Waite deck as well. That's the
Okay.
And so obviously we kind of all can have our own perspective. I mean, I know we do, but have a perspective of what each card means to ourselves and kind of the what the archetype of it, that just that in general.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily going to
card just
and
flew
I'm
out.
not going to interpret it for you, Letao. I would love to read you the stories in this book that they write about these
Okay.
cards is so
Okay.
wild. They're not
Yeah.
very long, but
Yeah. Sure.
Well, Letao, I did pull the card. The card flew out of the
all
deck
right as he was
right
shuffling.
as I was shuffling. Oh, by the way,
Uh-huh.
this is just a comment that Tony made to me earlier. We love the way you shuffle your tarot cards. He said you do
That's
it like
amazing.
he said you do it like a blackjack dealer, and I've never seen
Really?
anybody. Yeah, well,
Well,
he said he saw you on a podcast like shuffling it, kind of like boom, boom, boom.
so
like,
I did some research about you
I
last
love
night
it.
and
I
watched
love it.
some of your videos and I did a reading, your Leo reading that you just did 10 days ago. You know, like I'm not gonna just come into something and not know of you. You were the first searched Letao on my Google. Is funny because I'm not a huge, but like as soon as I typed your name and you came up first, I'm like, oh, it must be this guy. So it was awesome to watch you shuffle because like I played cards and Texas Hold'em and blackjack and I've been to Las Vegas and things like that casinos. So I watched them shuffle and you're way better at it than even them just playing with cards. So it's like it's almost like
Nah,
a
nah.
magical thing to watch you get tapped in and it was cool. It was cool.
Maybe it was just a good day. It was a good day. Yeah. There are bad days. There are shuffle. Whoops.
Yeah.
That happens. Yeah.
Well,
Oh
that just
yeah.
means you need to read every single one of those cards that flew out, right? Truthfully.
Yeah.
But
Evan's jumping out a turn for us already. That's okay,
so Letao, I drew the Empress card. It kind of came flying out
Oh
of the
wow.
deck. I drew the Empress card for you. I mean,
A lovely card.
for me, you know, this has always been about really tapping into the creative. We drew that earlier.
Last night we were doing a reading like of your energy, let's say, for example, trying to, and we asked this deck who like what you were personifying. You drew the Emperor.
We drew the Empress yesterday. So
Empress. Oh wow.
it is no, and for me, you know, it's really about tapping into that what we were talking about nature. We were talking about the creative. We were talking about like pure light in that sense, right? And
That's what he's been.
to me, it's just such a pure like essence within the Empress that I resonate with. I mean, I would love to hear your own interpretation on the Empress and how you feel that resonates with you and why it might have came out.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
So,
I know.
For now, I think I always associate the card Empress with pleasure, because this is a card ruled by Venus, and Venus is about joy, pleasure, right? Enjoy the physical abundance that is around you, and I think maybe the universe is telling me that I need to relax a little bit because I've been working so much recently, and I need to relax. And actually, I'm flying out next week. For my annual trip, I'll be in Europe for about 2 weeks.
Amazing.
I've been waiting for this trip.
Well, that's
for
why
so
we're hanging
long.
out now. This is pleasure right now. This is you don't always get to do something like we're doing at the
this is
exactly. Yeah, there's physical abundance, right? Eating nice food,
awesome.
and you're sleeping well, you're feeling good. So that's and usually as an advice card, what I usually tell clients is this is the time for you to really enjoy the pleasure of life.
and I love how practical you can instantly draw that card too, right? Because it's easy to talk about some of the bigger the bigger topics on wisdom and creation and
Yes,
Yep.
Evan,
I
that's a
love the
great.
practicality, and because you're right, it is about pleasure. It's about, almost taking like a
Mm,
soft, sensual approach to life, right? And like
yeah,
being in the
yeah,
Joy.
yeah.
joyful,
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, right, a lot of the most tarot books, right, they only tell you the high level knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, like we just said, the very high level wisdom or what this card represents and things like that. But I think the good readers, right, they will know the really practical meanings of each card. And I give an example. The other day, in the morning, I pulled out 3 cards, and it was the Tower, the Moon, and also the Wheel of Fortune, right? So all 3
All
major
3 in a
arcana.
row.
So yeah, right. So naturally, people would think, "Oh my God, there's gonna be some kind of fatal events happening,"
Yeah.
say something. The first thing I saw from these 3 cards, the first thing I saw this card was, "Oh, my washing machine probably will break down."
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Because of what? Because of Wheel of Fortune representing something turning.
Turning.
Okay,
Yep.
that anything that is like a
Practicality of
wheel
it.
turning, yeah. And the moon is related to water. That anything wet that is ruled by the moon in major arcana. And the tower is something breaking down. And so the first instant, because my washing machine has been working, weird for a long
Yep.
time. And I was thinking probably this is the last straw,
Yep.
So, and literally on that day, the washing machine just died.
Oh
And I had
my
to call.
And see, but
God.
what's so amazing about that too, Letao, is the fact that
Mhm.
that's what tarot. It's a simplicity of something like that you can
Yeah,
actually register, know, and that's your intuitive nature. That's what
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
you knew, right? You're
yeah.
like, oh, but then you could
It's
draw it again maybe the next week or that same exact type of path and reading, and it would resonate with you so much different. That's what's all.
Yeah,
That's the
Beautiful.
beauty of it.
So I
So,
think tarot can be used for the higher wisdom, right? Of course, yeah. But
of course.
sometimes it will tell you something very practical, very mundane, right? Just next to you. So yeah, this is the reason why I love tarot.
This is exactly so. This card is for you. The
Yeah,
simplicity of
thank
for
you.
you.
Oh, and all right, let's
For
see it.
you.
Oh,
The Queen of Pentacles.
oh, they're similar to the
What do you know?
Empress, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, let's get a
You
close
never-
up of the artwork. See if you
Oh
can.
wow,
It's a little blurry,
it's
but
It's a little,
little bit blurry,
we
yeah.
will
But
get you an image of this, but I would like to. I'm gonna love reading this because you already
okay,
know.
I
You
love the
already know.
storytelling in this. Yeah, the storytelling
yeah,
in this deck in particular really resonates with me too because it's very
yeah.
very
So,
profound.
the
Mm.
nurturing Mother Earth.
Both very
The
much
deepest
Empress,
secrets
yeah.
of the earth flow only in one direction, life. Life will always find a way. It will flow through and around all obstacles, and it will perpetuate itself. Think how the entirety of the global ecosystem you inhabit feeds itself. One part of it sustaining and supporting the other, one big flow of life around in a cycle of death, rebirth, and transformation. When your body returns to the earth, I am the process through which you in turn feed it. As it once fed you, there is no end to my bounty, for I am the eternal harvest and the renewal. They say the first of the harvest is always for the gods, but it should also be the last of the harvest that goes to them to ensure that a seed of the old replenishes and feeds the seed of the new. Therefore, recognize your body as the miracle it is and bear witness all around you in every moment to that perfect self-perpetuating cycle that sustains you. Beautiful.
Thank
The
you, thank you
exact
very much.
the creation of kind of what you're doing, Letao,
Yeah,
and how you're out there healing, and but you're also helping yourself too, and you realize that. I mean, people that like to heal, this is my own perception per se, but people that like to heal and help other people, they're doing that because they want to heal themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
We're doing it because
yeah.
it feels so good to help somebody. It helps us 10 times more. And you said it best when you said this is what really got me when you said, you don't want to engage with them because you know you're going to be remorseful afterwards. And that is for people like us, all 3 of us, actually, it's very hard for us to hurt people in that aspect. We have that hindsight already.
Correct.
We know already. So it was very beautiful.
100%.
So this whole archetype of how the creation renewal of what you're doing, the cycle of all of this is perfect. Especially with the Empress card that he drew for you. It's
I think that those 2 cards are kind of similar, right? In certain
most
ways.
definitely they're similar.
Yeah,
they're the
and
same point of
Yeah, and I don't know if you notice in the Rider-Waite version of Queen of Pentacles, there's a little rabbit on the corner of the
Yep.
picture.
There's one right down in here with this one too on around the
Oh,
pendant.
great. Yeah. So
Same
actually
thing.
the way I see this is, because rabbits in spirituality, of course, some people say that means, abundance, because rabbits, they reproduce a lot, right? But also rabbit is a very vulnerable animal. They're usually the prey and,
Yep.
of other bigger animals like eagles or tigers or whatever.
Mhm.
But you can see the queen having that small rabbit next to her, but she's not focused. She's not looking at the rabbit. The
No.
rabbit is there, but she's focusing on the pentacle, the
Yep.
coin in her hand. So usually I see this as, it's a bit like, we all have that vulnerability, or we all have a little bit of fear. They're thinking that, am I going to become the prey, right, of something
Yep.
bigger, something dangerous? But the most important thing is, as a Queen of Pentacles, she's not focusing on that. We have that, but let's not keep looking at that. Let's look at what we can create in a practical way with a golden coin in our hand.
Most definitely.
This is also the way I see this card. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel strong with that, dude.
That's
I resonate
beautiful.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, the card I pulled for you guys is Wheel of Fortune. Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. And by the way, when I was shuffling earlier,
Yep.
another card jumped out, and it was the Fool. So we got the Fool and the Wheel of Fortune. And did we just mention the Fool earlier?
Yeah, I brought that up.
That's
Yeah.
the card that
So that's what it is. So, when I see the Fool and the Wheel of Fortune sitting together, it's very much about, taking that leap of faith and jumping to that, that wheel, right? And see where that leads you to. So travel, guys, travel could be on the horizon. And
we might just
if
have
you
to come out and visit you, Letao.
Absolutely. Come to Hong Kong. Yeah. Come to Hong
I mean,
Kong.
honestly, that's something that it's, I mean, I wouldn't want to go anywhere with anybody but Evan. So, and then if we could, I don't know, meet up sometime. I mean, that, I know that's kind of out there, but I would definitely come visit you, man. Like you're
thank
cool,
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next
cool
year,
dude.
I'm not, it's not confirmed yet, but I might come to the States next year. Because my publisher is in the States, right? So I want to see them. And I've got two really good friends living in California, so I want to see them as well. So I'll see.
While you're flying over the United States to California, you can stop in South Dakota.
So I might plan the different places. Like, since I come to the States, it's
that'd
gonna
be
be
awesome. We could take them to the
12 hours.
we could take you to the Badlands.
I'd love to see that.
Have you heard about them before?
Did you mention that earlier? You said the spiritual.
Yeah, well, that's sort of within the whole area. Yeah, that's like the heart of the world, essentially.
So the Black Hills is like the. So what it was the Native Americans would go there because it was in the wintertime. It's very cold here, like very cold. So they couldn't be out in the open plains and teepees, because they'd freeze to death. So they had to go to the trees and the caves, and that's the Black Hills. The Badlands are another type of park per se, a spiritual place where a lot of Native Americans would live. But it's how would you describe the bat? Like a desert type of rock?
It's a lot of rock structures and rock formations, and very much it's hard to give you the right adjectives without and give you the proper image of it.
Badlands, South Dakota.
Just look at Badlands National Park, it'll pop up.
Okay, but when you say desert and rocks, I think of Grand Canyon.
Something like it. It's similar
rocks. Okay.
So
okay.
That kind of terrain, but in its own.
It's in its own right.
Gotcha.
It's beautiful.
Well, and it's interesting, Letao, with the Fool and the Wheel of Fortune card. I mean, we've been talking about this. We're very much in a period of, I feel there's a lot of new. There's a lot of let's just dive straight into the deep end. We don't know, like So that has been sort of an ongoing like theme for us, and I do try and take that and like, how do I embody that in the day to day? Maybe that just means being fully not deranged and delusional, but hey, I'm not going to think twice, and I'm going to be decisive, and I'm going to embrace change, and I'm going to actually
myself.
I'm going to express, and I'm going to, maybe there's a change in how I show up with people, or a change in how, and a change of habits, change of routines, right? And just kind of exploring and finding what works is, I think, what I've been in a period of, because, for example, something small, but for example, I go to the gym every day. I'm finding I need my times that I normally go at. it's not
Yeah.
working right now. It's not working
Uh,
right now. I need to either go
uh-huh.
early morning or I need to go late night because the middle of the
Late night,
day
yeah.
and like late
Uh-huh.
morning or late afternoon, it's not working.
Yeah.
So it's like just small
Uh-huh.
things, that
Yeah,
I'm like, all
yeah,
right,
yeah.
what kind of structures do I got to switch up, right? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
it's
Awesome. Yeah.
helpful to think of it in that way, like
Mm,
the small practical, just
mm.
embracing of it all,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, did you draw one more card?
Yeah. So while you guys were talking, I was just thinking about
Huh.
what we kind of are making together as this
Mm.
trifecta per se. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
drew
yeah.
the Two of Swords,
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
the
One of
balancing.
balancing, yeah. Two of Swords actually is a very spiritual card actually. Specifically when you do pairings, tarot cards pairings, Two of Swords sitting together with High Priestess, that means a psychic ability, the pairing.
Wow.
So yeah, because
That's
you
why
can
I like
see
this
that.
guy, because you
Mm.
know so much about this. It's so fascinating and very sorry.
Because you can see the terror on the image, right? The woman, she's blindfolded, she can't see, but she's
Mm-hmm.
feeling
Yep.
it.
Yep.
You know what I
Most
mean? So
definitely.
usually,
With the
yeah,
moon above her too in this
moon
one.
above, yeah, the intuition, right? So Two of Swords is actually a very psychic card, specifically if in the spread there is High Priestess next to it. This usually shows this client herself or himself is very
Mhm.
psychic. It's
Wow.
a good card to book. So for us, I think that just means that sometimes we might not see it, but we know it.
Yeah, it's all about that, and that's what truth is.
That's what truth
That's
is.
the
Yeah,
truth.
there
That's
you
what
go.
truth is. It's like we
Yeah,
don't always see
yeah,
it, but we feel it and know it.
yeah.
This has been wonderful, Letao. I mean,
Thank you.
and I want to be mindful of your time. So I mean, I have about 2 hours. Do you have, anything that you would like to leave the listeners with, or
Yeah.
leave me with
or
even.
and also where
Yeah,
people
yeah.
can further find your work,
Ah,
where
yeah, yeah.
anything that in any projects you got coming up, what's on
Right,
the plate for you? I know
right.
you're traveling, but
So, okay, that's a lot of questions. So
that's a
first of
lot of
all,
questions. Yeah, I tend to do
Bombarded you.
I tend to do
yeah,
that sometimes. I'll ask like six
yeah.
questions in one question and put a pretty bow on it.
Yeah, so the good news is that I'm in the process of the next Oracle. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you have this Oracle deck of mine. This one came out in June this year. Oracle of the Celestial Deities.
Oh no, I do not. Oh wow.
Okay, so I'll just quickly talk about the difference, right? So this one that you have is focusing on the mortal heroes,
Okay.
Hercules, Theseus, Atlanta, right? Orpheus. This one is the gods and goddesses,
Oh wow.
right? Zeus, Hera, Aphrodite, Venus, Artemis, right? So these two, you can see this as this one is a sequel of this one. So this is my first publication came out in January this year. This one is my second one
We'll be getting
came
both
out
of
in
them.
June. And the good news is I'm working on the third Oracle deck, and I'm not gonna reveal the too much about it. But I
fine.
mean you're gonna see it anyway. But roughly the third deck will come onto the market next year around summertime.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
so that's what we are working on at this moment with the same publisher, yeah, Beyond Word. And yeah, so people can find these decks from Amazon.com, spiritual shops. I'm sure Anthony, your mom's shop might have my cards.
No, most definitely. That's what I haven't looked. That's the thing. Like she
might have them.
Letao,
Might have it.
definitely
Yeah.
she will be having them because I'm
I think
ordering them
yeah.
on Monday when I get paid, ordering them and then also replenishing her stock because
Yeah.
I don't know if she does or not. She has so many decks that it's very hard.
Yeah.
I don't go through every single one, but obviously.
Yeah. But just in case, if you see one of these two decks in her shop, could you please take a photo for me? I would love to see it on the bookshelf. Yeah, I would love to if she has it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So tarot shop, right? You can find those decks. And and also if just in case our audience would like to have a personal reading session with me, they can find me on my website www.thehealingkingdom.com, and they will be able to contact me to schedule a reading session. But because I'll be traveling for the next 3 weeks, so all the reading sessions will resume from October the 1st.
Nice.
Oh, beautiful.
Thehealingkingdom.com.
Or
Correct.
just
Yeah.
all right, I'll have that in the episode show notes so people
Nice.
everybody knows how to use
Yeah.
tech. They can scroll on down. It'll be
Yeah.
it'll be
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. And I think I also sent you my media guide before, right?
Yep.
By
Yep.
email. Yeah. So a lot of links are in there anyway. Yeah. And I think we just followed each other on the
On
Instagram. And
Instagram.
Anthony,
Yep.
feel free to send me a message on Instagram, and I'll follow you as well.
I'm not
Yeah.
a social media
He doesn't have,
person.
this guy doesn't
Oh,
have
you are
any
not.
social
Oh,
media.
I
okay.
just got a cell
Oh,
phone
okay.
for the first time in 7 years because
Really?
of my
Really?
job. I'm a manager. I'm a carpenter, so I'm the foreman now. So
Okay.
the owner of the
Uh-huh.
company had to get a hold of me. He's like, "Well, if you want to be the boss, you have to get a phone." I'm like, "So you take this much money, or
But how do you two get in contact if you don't have a phone?
Oh, just show up at each other's house.
yeah."
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Okay.
he has a
That's
phone
I
now.
don't have a phone now,
Oh, okay.
Letao. I have
Okay,
a cell
okay.
phone now. I had to get one, but aside from the cell phone and the messaging, the whole
Huh.
I don't want to say distraction, but it's a distraction. I'm sorry, guys, but
Yeah.
there's lots of life out there that
True.
I fulfill myself with that I don't need because
True.
I was on
Yeah.
the internet. I told you I played
Yeah.
World of Warcraft for 15 years. I played Destiny and Call of Duties, and I played
Yeah.
all these RPGs, Smite, and all these huge
Yeah.
games that you have to like engulf yourself with.
Invest. Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
know what the
yeah,
internet
yeah.
is. It's called the web for a reason, But
Yeah,
I know that there's
yeah.
also ways to use it, and I just personally, it's hard for me to not be distracted and go 100% in on it. So I'm just like, I'll be back here,
Yeah. I
Yeah,
respect
all.
that.
yeah.
I
That's
respect
all.
that big time. But
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
awesome.
So finally, I thank you, both of you guys again
Thank
for
you, man.
having me today. Yeah, I really had a
It's an
great
honor.
time, and please do keep in touch, and hopefully, I'll make sure that the next Oracle deck before it came out, I'll ask the publisher to send you guys a copy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, beautiful.
And
Thank
Well,
you,
you'll
man.
definitely be getting our poetry book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's coming out in the next month or two, so I'll send you a copy of that. And we'll. I feel this is just the first podcast. We'll
Yeah,
definitely
Yeah,
continue
absolutely.
to
I'd love to come
Bros.
back. Yeah, I'd love to come
We're
back.
all
Yeah.
bros.
definitely
Mm.
continue to learn, grow, and expand because the beauty of this type of like divination and these conversations is there's
Uh-huh.
always more to explore and unpack. Like there's always more, and as life throws that more at you, well, we learn more. So
Just
Yeah,
real
yeah,
quick,
yeah.
That's how our last podcast we actually did was, and I don't know how familiar you are with Dr. Stephen Greer at Close Encounters. So I'm a big believer of the universe is infinite. So we're not the only things here, okay? So
Yeah,
what we do out here is it's called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It's CE5. And all we're doing is tapping in, meditating, connecting to source, the energies, to whatever's out around us. And we see some pretty wild lights and beings, and
things up in the sky. Yeah,
it's
crazy.
beautiful.
Yeah,
And because of the area we're in, it's so easy to see that it's not a satellite or a drone or a plane or so. And we do a lot of readings while we're doing this, and it's beautiful to connect like that. So I don't know how you feel about that, but the next time you're outside and you see the stars, look up.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. We should all do that. Yeah. And when we look up, we realize that we are not that far away from each other.
Yes.
exactly. Because we're all looking at the same
was beautiful.
stars. That's
Same thing,
beautiful.
yeah.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Letao. This was so much fun, man. And like I said, I'll have this out in the next week or so. And when I do, we'll blast out some social media. I'll send you the video link for this after we hop off, so you can have the direct file too. And,
I will also put make a post on my Instagram. Yeah, and so
right on. We can tag it. We'll tag in it and.
By the way, so your Instagram is just your name, right? That's your Instagram.
That's just just my name.
Okay, cool. So if you want to do like a collaboration post, that's also fine. And then I will just share the same post, or we can share separately. Oh, is that your cat?
The cat has come. Luna has come to say hello.
Luna. Hey, hello, Luna. Wow.
Oh, now she ran away.
She just wanted to make a quick appearance. Had to make it real quick.
Yeah, like don't
real
forget
quick.
me, guys.
Cameo appearance. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Letao. This was a lot of fun. We're definitely gonna have to do it again whenever the Oracle deck comes out. Maybe sometime before that too. We'll just play it by ear. But this was a lot of fun, man.
I'll have Evan. I do have an email address, Letao. I will have Evan give that to you in case.
Oh, and I'll include him on the emails that we
Yeah. We
responded.
you can yeah. So I mean, you can do maybe send me an email and CC Anthony, right? So we all have
Be
each
awesome.
other's
Yeah.
email. Then yeah, keep in touch. Yeah. Have a
Awesome, man.
wonderful day, guys. Yeah.
All right,
See
you
you
too,
next time.
Letao.
Later.
Bye.
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 Special thank you to Letao for coming on the fifth dimension. Be sure to check out his website, thehealingkingdom.com. You can always reach out to him directly there or on his Instagram page as well. And I would encourage you guys to purchase Oracle of the Mythic Heroes. Here's a guidebook right here. As you can see, as we talked about in the show, it's quite thick. There's lots of unpack in here, but the cards themselves, I got them out right now, actually. I've been doing a little reading for myself today. They're beautiful cards. I mean, I'll just pull one for you guys and, leave you with a little something here. We got friendship. Friendship. Beautiful. Me, you, here together. I don't know the story behind Damon and Pythias, but I think I'll do a little bit of reading after I'm done on this podcast, just because I want to learn. I want to learn the stories. There's a lot to unpack there. So, special thank you to Letao for coming on the show, and check out that deck. He's got his other decks out there as well. All the links to everything you need to connect with him is in the episode show notes. Just scroll on down. I know you guys know how to use the tech, so go ahead and do that. Check out my Substack, mcdermott.substack.com. Free to subscribe. You can be a paid subscriber if you want. That's just a way to donate and help the show, help my work and support the work that we're doing here, trying to change the paradigm, shift into this new way of being and thinking and embodying. So mcdermott.substack.com. Be sure to subscribe here, whatever platform you're on using to watch or listen to this. It really does help the show, believe it or not. So I appreciate you guys doing that. And really, that's going to wrap up this episode. If you subscribe, there's going to be some great podcasts coming in the near future. I have some guests lined up that I've been wanting to talk to for a long time. I won't reveal any names and spoil the fruits before they harvest, I suppose, I guess you could say. But there's some excitement right now. There's some excitement, and I'm excited to keep grinding, keep doing this, and make it happen. So I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.